Live by courtesy of the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit in conjunction with Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. My name is Gladys Mungai. Let's have a look at the order of business this morning. 3 bills will be tabled for the first reading today. One of them is by the Leader of Majority, the Mediation Bill, National Assembly Bill number 17 of 2020. The principal object of the bill aims at giving effect to the recommendations of the parliamentary report dated 17th June 2019 on the inquiry into the Kenya Airports privately initiated investment proposal to Kenya Airports Authority prepared by the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing, proposing that among other recommendations, the nationalization of Kenya Airways. The bill proposes for the establishment of Kenya Aviation Corporation as a holding corporation and its operating entities, including the operating equity subsidiaries. Another bill set to be tabled before the floor of the House this morning is the National Assembly Bill, National Aviation Management Bill, National Assembly Bill number 18 of 2020. The principal object of the bill is, among others, to provide for the settlement of all civil disputes by mediation, set out the principles application to the mediation, as well as provide the establishment of the mediation committee and provide for the accreditation or registration of mediators and recognition as well as enforcement of settlement agreements, among other factors. Other bills set to be tabled before the floor of the House this morning is the Supplementary Appropriations Bill. The Supplementary Appropriations Bill number 2 of 2020. The Committee of the Whole House will be considering the Supplementary Appropriations Bill. The bill will be tabled by the Vice Chairperson of the Budget and Appropriations Committee. 2 motions are set to be moved on the floor of the House this morning. The Vice Chairpersons of the Mediation Committee will be moving a motion on the approval of mediated version of the County Government's Amendment Bill number 11 of 2017, that this House adopts the report of the Mediation Committee on County Government, Senate Bill number 11 of 2017, laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, April 22nd, 2020, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 113, subsection 2 of the Constitution, and Standing Orders number 150, approves the mediated version of County Government's Senate Bill number 11 of 2017. The Vice Chairperson of the Mediation Committee will be moving a motion on the approval of the mediated version of the County Government's Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 7 of 2017. Order number 7, questions. A couple of questions will be directed to various departmental committees. The Member of Parliament for Igembe Central, Honorable Iringo Kubai, will ask the Cabinet Secretary for Water and Sanitation, that could be the Cabinet Secretary, explain why Ura Dam in Nyambene Forest in Igembe Central constituency, which was constructed by the national government in partnership with the Catholic Diocese of Meru, completed 3 years ago, is yet to be operational. Could the Cabinet Secretary explain the breakdown of the total amount of money spent in the construction of the said project, indicating the amount paid to the contractor surrounding the areas? Also, what measures the ministry has put in place to ensure that the dam is operational as soon as possible to provide the much-needed water to the people of Igembe Central. On your screen is the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Moses Chiboi, making his way into the chamber. I'll hand you now over for live broadcast. My name is Gladys Mungai. Enjoy your viewing.
Honorable members, let's pray. Almighty God, who in your wisdom and goodness have appointed the offices of leaders and parliaments for welfare of society and the just government of the people, we beseech you to behold with your abundant favor as your servants, whom you have been pleased to call to performance of important trust in this republic. Let your blessings descend upon us here assembled. Grant that we treat and consider all matters that shall come under deliberations in so just and faithful a manner as to promote your honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests you've committed to our charge. Amen. Other members, the quorum threshold is met. The other members in other holding areas, and therefore business will begin.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
Leader of Majority Party.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Tuesday, June 30th, 2020, after morning sitting. Report of the Auditor General on the financial statements on the National Water Conservation and Pipeline Corporation for the year ended 30th June 2017. And 2, list of nominees to 14 National Government Constituencies Development Fund committees from the National Government Constituencies Development Fund Board for the following constituencies. 1, Ainamoy. 2, Banisa. 3, Bondo. 4, Dadaab. 5, Ikolomani. Number 6, Isiolo South. Number 7, Kajiado North. Number 8, Kangema. Number 9, Kiambu. Number 10, Kitui East. Number 11, Mandera West. Number 12, Rarieda. Number 13, Sigowet Soin. And number 14, Lugari.
Very well. Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
On this one, we have the Chairperson Select Committee on National Government Constituencies Development Fund. Honorable Maure.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion, that pursuant to the provisions of Section 43(4) and Regulation 510 of the National Government Constituency Development Fund 2015, this House approves the list of nominees for appointment to the following 14 constituency committees of the National Government Constituency Development Fund laid on the table of this House on Tuesday, June 30th, 2020. Ainamoy, Banisa, Bondo, Dadaab, Ikolomani, Isiolo South, Kajiado North, Kangema, Kiambu, Kitui East, Mandera West, Rarieda, Sigowet, Soin, and Lugari constituency. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. The next one is by the Vice Chair, Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning, Honorable Waihenya Ndirangu, member for Roysambu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of the Committee of Finance and National Planning, Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion, that pursuant to the provisions of Section 13 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act 2011 relating to the extension of period for consideration of nominees for appointment to a public office. This House resolves to extend the period for consideration of the nominee submitted by His Excellency the President for appointment as the Auditor General by a further period of 14 days from 8th July 2020. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Next order.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
On this particular one, we will start with the questions, and we have a few ordinary questions, starting with the member for Igembe Central, Honorable Iringo Kubai.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pursuant to provisions of Standing Order 42A, I would wish to ask question number 096 of 2020, directed to the Cabinet Secretary, Water and Sanitation. Could the Cabinet Secretary explain why Ura Dam in Nyambene Forest of Igembe Central constituency, which was constructed by the national government in partnership with the Catholic Church in the Diocese of Meru 3 years ago, remains unoperational? 2, could the Cabinet Secretary provide a breakdown of the total amount of money spent in construction of the said dam, indicating the amount paid to the contractors and the surrounding areas? 3, what measures has the ministry put in place to ensure that the dam is operational as soon as possible, so as to provide the much needed water to the people of Igembe Central? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. That one will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Environment and Natural Resources. Next is the member for Westlands, Honorable Wanyonyi.
Mr. Speaker, let me get the question first. I don't have it.
Okay. But you could still use the gadget. Well, let's proceed first to Honorable Member for Makueni, Honorable Manzo. Then we'll come back to you. Honorable Manzo, what number is your seat?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my question is to the Cabinet Secretary for Transport, Infrastructure, Housing, Urban Development, and Public Works. Roman 1, what is the status of the construction of Emali Ukia Road, B107, in Makueni, Kaiti, and Kibwezi West constituencies? Roman 2, there are plans by the ministry to ensure that upgrading of the said road to bitumen standards commences soonest. Roman 3, could the Cabinet Secretary explain the reason for the delays in budgeting and upgrading to bitumen standards of Ukia Emali Road, previously C99? Roman 4, what was the justification for the transfer of Ukia Emali Road, C99, from Kenya Rural Roads Authority, KERA, to Kenya National Highways Authority, KENHA, and and its reclassification to B107? That's all, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, may I now?
Just a minute, Honorable Wanyonyi. So that one will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Transport and Public Works and Housing. Now let's get back to the Honorable Tim Wanyonyi, member for Westlands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to ask the Cabinet Secretary for Devolution and Arid and Semi-Arid lands, Mr. Speaker. Could the Cabinet Secretary provide the food distribution schedule for the households affected by the recent flooding in the country, including the number of beneficiaries, quantities distributed per constituency, and the frequency of the distribution. Number two, to provide the quantity of food available for distribution and the projected duration of support. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. That one will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security. Then we go to the member for Teso North, Honorable Oku Kaunya.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to ask this question. Number 101/2020 to the Cabinet Secretary for Education. 1. Could the Cabinet Secretary provide the policy regarding equipping and operationalization of technical training institutions and provide the status report for the equipping and operationalization of the said institutions in the country? 2. When will Chamasiri Technical Training Institute in Teso North be equipped, considering that it has been in operation since September 2019 with a current student population of over 500 students? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. That one will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Education and Research. Then we go now to statements. And yours, Honorable Amulela, is a personal statement? Yes. Let's hear from you.
Honorable Speaker, I rise to make a personal statement pursuant to Standing Order number 84 regarding vote of thanks and appreciation during the passing on of my dear mother, the Reverend Councillor Sophia Monyo. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order number 84, I wish to make a personal statement regarding a vote of thanks and appreciation on my own behalf and on behalf of my entire family, the Monyo family, for the support we received during the period of the passing on of my dear mother, the Reverend Councillor Sophia Monyo. Honorable Speaker, on behalf of my entire family and the late Reverend Sophia Monyo, and on behalf of my family, I'm extremely humbled to register my sincere appreciation to all members of Parliament for standing in solidarity with us during this period of mourning following the demise of my mother. We thank you for your support, for your prayers, and for standing with us during the period of mourning and sending off of our beloved mother. Honorable Speaker, I would like to thank the Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Justin Muturi, and members of Parliament, and the Speaker of the Senate also, the Honorable Lusaka, my colleagues, both in the National Assembly and the Senate, for being with us, for your words of encouragement, and all that you gave us during this period. Honorable Speaker, the family truly appreciates all of you for taking time off from your busy schedules to condole with us. We thank you all. Thank you, Speaker.
Very well. Thank you very much. Therefore, we go to the next order.
Order number 8, the Mediation Bill, National Assembly Bill number 17 of 2020, first reading. A bill for an act of Parliament to provide for the settlement of civil disputes by mediation, to set out the principles applicable to mediation, to provide for the establishment of mediation committee, to provide for the accreditation and registration of mediators, recognition and enforcement of settlement agreements, and for connected purposes. Order number 9, the National Aviation Management Bill, National Assembly Bill number 18 of 2020, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to provide for the establishment of the National Aviation Council, Kenya Aviation Corporation, and its operating entities, to provide for their powers, functions, and management, and for connected purposes. Order number 10, motion, alteration of the calendar of the House.
Honorable Leader of Majority Party.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that, aware that in accordance aware that in accordance with the calendar of the House for the fourth session 2020 as adopted
Order.
on...
Who is this member? Take your seat, please. Proceed.
As adopted on February 18, 2020, and amended on 17th of March 2020, 14th April 2020, and on 2nd of June 2020, the House is scheduled to proceed on a short recess in respect of the second part of the session on Friday, July the 3rd, 2020. Now, therefore, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 28.4, this House resolves to further alter the calendar by varying the resumption date of the short recess from Tuesday, 21st July 2020 at 2:30 p.m. to Tuesday, July 28th, 2020 at 2:30 p.m. Mr. Speaker, I gave notice of this motion last week, the same having been approved through the by the House Business Committee, which sat and looked at the calendar, the issues, the pending business, and particularly also the need for members to visit their constituencies and start planning the activities for the following year. Our staff obviously also need some break, while the new leadership in the House also requires some time following the reorganization of committees to conduct the elections, to sit with the new members, to think through programs for the next session, and even to meet with the various directorates to appraisal on the ongoing and pending business in the House, so that by the time we come back, at least we can be able to clear most of the things, including the members' bills. We take cognizance of the fact there are so many pending bills for individual members' bills, and we need to figure out how those can be processed within that, so that they are ready for debate when we come back, plus also the pending work arising from Senate. Mr. Speaker, in connection with what I've just said about members' activities, in terms of reviewing new programs, especially CDF, and monitoring what is happening, I've also been in contact with the National Treasury, because I'm aware that the amount that have been released are just less than half. And the National Treasury has agreed that within the course of this week, they'll be releasing some more monies so that members can go and plan for that, and go at least within 3 weeks. There will be more activities taking place at the CDF levels, and which of course translates to faster development and the betterment of our people. So this recess is basically being extended by an extra 1 week. And members may also remember that before, this is the first year where we've had to do the finance bill before that year of June. Before, we used to come back to do the finance bill. Now that we've done it, we don't need to rush to come back, because we've done most of the work. We'll just be coming back for bills. So it's really a procedural matter, but it's fundamental because we are altering our calendar, and I want to ask members as we support, and we start planning accordingly. I'd like to move and would ask the Honorable Body to second. Leader of the Minority Party.
Yes, Leader Minority Party.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to second the motion that has been ably moved by the Leader of Majority, and who is also my senior in the profession. He has done a lot of justice to the motion. we are just adding one more week to the recess period that we were supposed to have up to 21st of July, that then we have our recess up to 28th of July. We agreed as a House Business Committee to do this for some good reasons. Number one, that this is the first year, as the Leader of Majority has said, that we have managed to deal with both the finance bill and also the budget estimates and concluded them before 30th of June. Previously, we used to come back quickly so that we deal with the finance bill. But this time round, this House was able to dispense of these two bills in good time. Secondly, I think we must give credit to this House. This House has risen to the occasion and up to the task when called upon to do so, especially in passing various enabling legislations to allow the response by the executive to COVID-19. And I want to thank members of this House for showing diligence, for being committed to the work that the people of Kenya gave us mandate to do. Finally, Mr. Speaker, allow me to also talk about the issue of CDF and National Government Constituency Development Fund, that I think the Treasury will continue to put pressure on the Treasury as the leadership of this House, so that these amounts are released in good time, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Treasury is very slow in releasing money for National Government Constituency Development Fund, and yet very quick at releasing monies under Article 223, even on projects that are not really emergency cases. And Mr. Speaker, this is disheartening, because if you look at the framework of National Government Constituency Development Fund, it's actually what one would call a stimulus package. If there is any fund in this country which has consistently and every year been a stimulus package to this economy, it's CDF, because it stimulates economic growth at the grassroots level, Mr. Speaker. And so, Mr. Speaker, I want to just tell the Cabinet Secretary, and I will agree that actually the Leader of Majority has communicated with him, and he has made a commitment, but that commitment should be realized this week, so that those constituencies which have not received the full allocation should receive the full allocation latest mid-next week from the board. But the money must leave the Treasury this week to allow these constituencies to embark on implementation of projects, which are actually 2019-2020 projects. Mr. Speaker, those of us who probably got money earlier, I think about 13 constituencies, which received the full allocation. And I thank God Suba South was one of the 13. It is a period that we use as members of parliament to go and oversight or supervise and see, because that is our role really, the implementation of the same. There are quite a number of projects, like in my constituency, which have been completed. This is the time that I'm going to use productively to see how the projects have been implemented. Mr. Speaker, I didn't intend to speak a lot on this motion because it's a procedural motion. Allow me to stop there and second the motion.
Okay. Now, before I propose a question, the sergeant at arms should allow members to take all the seats that are vacant, that have not been occupied, even by members who probably had indicated they would be here. So please let the members take those seats. And yes, they can wait briefly, just briefly. Order, order, order. Order, members. I propose a question, which is that aware that in accordance to the calendar of the House for the fourth session 2020 as adopted on February 18, 2020, and amended on 17th March 2020, 14th April 2020, and 2nd June 2020, the House is scheduled to proceed to the short recess in respect of the second part of the session on Friday, July 3rd, 2020. Now, therefore, pursuant to provisions of Standing Order 28.4, this House resolves to further alter the calendar by varying the resumption date of the short recess from Tuesday, 21st July 2020 at 2:30 p.m. to Tuesday, July 28, 2020 at 2:30 p.m. I put the question. This is a procedural motion, honorable members, and is that your feeling? Should I put the question? Will as many as of that opinion say aye? And as ever contrary say nay? The ayes have it. So I proceed to put the question, which is aware that in accordance to the calendar of the House for the fourth session 2020, as adopted on February 18, 2020, and amended on 17th March, 14th April, and 2nd June of 2020, the House is scheduled to proceed on a short recess in respect of the second part of the session on Friday, July 3rd, 2020. Now, therefore, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 28.4, this House resolves to further alter the calendar of the House by varying the resumption date of the short recess from Tuesday, July 21st at 2:30 p.m. to Tuesday, July 28th, Tuesday, 28th July 2020 at 2:30 p.m. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. So we move to the next order.
Order number 11, procedural motion, reduction of the publication period for a specified bill.
That must be by the Vice Chairperson, Budget and Appropriation Committee, Honorable Lesonet. And where are you?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, that notwithstanding the provisions of Standing Order number 120, this House resolves to reduce the publication period of the Supplementary Appropriation number 2 Bill, National Assembly Bill number 22 of 2020 from 7 days to 14 days, from 7 days to 4 days. Mr. Speaker, today is 30th June 2020, the end of the financial year. And in this Supplementary Appropriation Bill 2020 intends to provide resources. Basically, Mr. Speaker, resources being moved within ministries, within state departments, like at the Ministry of Health, Mr. Speaker, to move in resources, savings at the ministry to KEMSA for purchase of testing kits. That is the input of this, that we really need to shorten this publication period, Mr. Speaker, so that these resources can be available by the end of the day today. So, Mr. Speaker, with those remarks, I want to beg the majority leader, CPA Amos Kimunya. Amos Kimunya, Mr. Speaker, you know we are colleagues in the profession, the accountancy profession. I want to request him to second, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, seems there is a lot of the overflow of accountants in the House. Now,
we take that as a compliment, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to second the motion to alter the publication period. And this is not the first time we are doing it. It's something we've done over time. Whenever there is a need to accelerate the processing of business in the House. It's a straightforward matter. Last week, the committee worked overtime and presented to us their report, having received the estimates. They looked at them.
Order
they
members,
said it's okay.
No member is allowed to interfere with the direct view by the Speaker.
Mr. Speaker.
The member who is contributing, it is against the standing orders. Who was that member, by the way?
I agree, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we did last week approve the report of this committee, and they worked very hard. And I'm aware that the committee did not stop at us approving. They went further and even look through further issues that were not comprehensively covered within their report. And I'm sure they'll be reporting that, so that we can process this appropriation bill today. Technically, Article 223 of the Constitution says whatever has been spent must be ratified within or regularized within 2 months. So on some of the items, we could even wait and regularize in next month. But we also would want to ensure that we close our year without carrying forward issues for this year into the next financial year. And I think just for neatness of housekeeping, and just in case there's an item that needs to be paid today rather than wait to regularize it later, it will be good for us to close those books. So I would urge that we approve the motion so that we give the opportunity to the committee to then present to us. Then the House will make a decision on the supplementary bill, and hopefully we, in the usual way we've been processing things, we'll be able to have this bill ready for signing perhaps later in the day, and then the Kenyans can get the benefit of the utilization of this money, because we need all money injected into the economy at this point to stimulate the economy with the downturn that we have seen with the COVID. And we also need to ensure that we don't have a shortage of testing kits. We don't have a shortage of quarantine facilities. And part of the monies that will be requested for within this is to facilitate, especially those two very key interventions that are required. So, Mr. Speaker, I really don't belabor the point. It's important that we do it, and it's within our mandate as a House. We've done it before, and we will continue doing it in the future whenever business becomes urgent. With those words, I beg to second.
Okay, so I propose a question, which is that notwithstanding the provisions of Standing Order 120, this House resolves to reduce the publication period of the Supplementary Appropriation Number 2 Bill, National Assembly Bill Number 22 of 2020, from 7 to 4 days. I proceed to put the question, which is that notwithstanding the provisions of Standing Order 120, this House resolves to reduce the publication period of the Supplementary Appropriation Number 2 Bill, National Assembly Bill Number 22 of 2020, from 7 to 4 days. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Many as of our contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Order number 12, the Supplementary Appropriations Number 2 Bill, National Assembly Bill Number 22 of 2020, first reading. A bill for an act of Parliament to authorize the issue of certain sums of money out of the Consolidated Fund and the application toward the service of the year ending on the 30th June 2020, and to appropriate those sums for certain public services and purposes. Order number 13, the Supplementary Appropriation Number 2 Bill, National Assembly Bill Number...
What is it, Honorable Lesonet? I'm trying to trace you. What number is that, Sit? 53? What number is it? 53 has disappeared from the system. And it was there. What? It is not there at all. You might have to use the main, and in the meantime, somebody should adjust it accordingly.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, you are right. This is the standard height, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I just want to request before the next order is announced that you allow me, Mr. Speaker, to lay the following paper on the table of the House.
Have a document to lay. And I'm surprised that now your gadget is working back where you are seated. Probably you should use that one. It's much more comfortable for you. So as we we will go back to order number 5 to allow Honorable Lesonet to table a document.
Thank you.
It's a critical document. That's why.
Order number
I'm allowing
5,
him.
papers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Tuesday, 30th June 2020, report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on the Supplementary Appropriation Number 2, Bill 2020. Mr. Speaker, that is what I want to do for now, and then I will pronounce myself on this report in the next order. I thank you.
Very well. So we go to the next order now.
Order number 13, the Supplementary Appropriation Number 2 Bill, National Assembly Bill Number 22 of 2020, second reading.
Very well. Honorable Lesonet.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on Supplementary Appropriation Bill Number 2, 2020, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, like I said when I spoke the first time, that the report I've tabled, Mr. Speaker.
Now, just to guide you, Honorable Lesonet.
Yes.
You will be very brief on it.
Yes.
Because this is a document that originates from a previous document that has been discussed exhaustively by the House.
Thank you.
And even further than that, when the members will have an opportunity, should be brief on it and finalize it so that we can go to actually the committee, which will be the main meat of this issue.
Well
so we will make it very brief, maybe 30 minutes at most.
Well guided, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in this report, the report which I've just tabled, is basically, Mr. Speaker, about further amendments which were originated by Treasury and the Ministry of Health on this supplementary number 2, 2020, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, those amendments by Treasury and the Ministry of Health are valid in the sense that, as at yesterday, Mr. Speaker, considering that we were not able to release the ring-fence funds, the 3 billion shillings which this House appropriated for use in particular health facilities, the Ministry of Health identified 2 billion shillings within their votes, which will not have been used by today, for reallocation, 1.5 billion shillings, Mr. Speaker, to KEMSA for purchase of testing kits, 500 million, Mr. Speaker, to KMTC to sort out the cost associated with quarantining those who had tested positive at KMTC facilities. Mr. Speaker, further amendments include monies which have been used by KDF to the extent of 1.9 billion shillings, Mr. Speaker. We need to tidy up the books by the end of the day today. Those are monies which were applied using Section 223 of the Constitution, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this House is aware of a massive project on land donated by Kenya Meteorological Department towards the housing, the Big Four agenda, Mr. Speaker. And this government, Mr. Speaker, has chosen to apply 2,370 million shillings towards social infrastructure, Mr. Speaker, at that particular facility. That is money, Mr. Speaker, already released. Again, this is 30th of June, 2020. Mr. Speaker, money is applied under 223. We are begging this House, Mr. Speaker, to accept that amendment. Mr. Speaker, at the Ministry of Energy, there is the Longalayani project, where the deemed power has to be paid for. That is power which was generated but was not used. It did not reach the customers because the long line from Longalayani to Naivasha was not complete. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, there is a last cost. The committee has assured us there will be no other payment towards deemed power at the Ministry of Energy. And Mr. Speaker, this last payment of 1 billion shillings, 160 million, is towards that particular item, Mr. Speaker. Again, this is money Mr. Speaker already paid, and we are requesting this House to approve, because today is 30th of June, and the committee, Mr. Speaker, has further confirmed to us that there will be an audit which will be undertaken at the Ministry of Energy on that deemed power, so that we establish whether it's in accordance with the law, so that we establish, Mr. Speaker, that we have not overpaid that particular customer, the Lake Turkana wind power project, Mr. Speaker. And even, Mr. Speaker, in the event that we shall have overpaid, there is continued business between Kenya Power, the Ministry of Energy, and the Lake Turkana Power Generation Company, Mr. Speaker, and of course, it will be possible to recover. Mr. Speaker, other small amendments, Mr. Speaker, to this report include monies which is being reallocated within the Ministry of Lands. They are moving it from a vote which they were not able to spend on by today to a very simple item, Mr. Speaker, which is very quick to implement purchase of vehicles. You know, Mr. Speaker, to buy a vehicle can be a day's transaction, especially when you have confirmed rates with the various suppliers of motor vehicles. So, Mr. Speaker, it is part of that which we are requesting this House to approve. And, Mr. Speaker, like you said, I don't need to belabor the point. This report had been debated last week, Mr. Speaker. It is only contributing towards the extent of these amendments. And, Mr. Speaker, with those remarks, as I move, I want to allow and request the Honorable John Buddy, the leader of minority in this House, Mr. Speaker, to second. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Leader of the Minority Party.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as I second this motion, I think I want to again just repeat that our concerns were expressed last week. We talked about issues that we felt the Treasury is not doing right. But, Mr. Speaker, the reason why we decided to approve this supplementary budget and even agree to the appropriation bill for the same is because we don't want to have our financial statements at the end of the financial year to have excess votes in our books. Because definitely, if you have spent money and Parliament has not approved it, the net effect of that is that when the Auditor General comes to audit the books or the financial statements of the Republic of Kenya, then there will be certain votes that will have been overspent based on the budgetary provisions. Mr. Speaker, we agreed to the request by the Ministry of Health to reallocate 2 billion. Initially, they wanted to take the 3 billion from the ring-fenced funds for specific hospitals, but we rejected that. What the Ministry of Health has done, and this is why I think our executive needs to be careful and serious in its budgetary process and implementation. Because the moment, Mr. Speaker, we rejected the reallocation of the ring-fenced funds, what the Ministry of Health did was to quickly look for 2 billion, which they easily found within their sector. And then, Mr. Speaker, it was curious because this money was coming from salaries. But then when we asked how come the salaries can release 2 billion, because salaries is so fixed and so direct and so you can determine it so easily. But then, Mr. Speaker, we got an explanation which was making sense because the ministry wanted to recruit a number of personnel. If you, at the beginning of the year, Mr. Speaker, there were a lot of adverts for various positions under the Ministry of Health, Kenyatta National Hospital, and that is factual, Mr. Speaker. This recruitment has not been done. So then, Mr. Speaker, that money became available. And again, the justification to use 500 million in our KMTC, the PS explained that very well because, Mr. Speaker, a lot of our health facilities which are supposed to be used to take care of sick persons in this country are already taken up by COVID-19 patients, most of whom, over 80%, are asymptomatic, in real sense, don't show signs of sickness. So they just sleep in our beds, Mr. Speaker, and there is no serious medical attention on them. We felt it is a right strategy to get these patients asymptomatic, have them in KMTCs, because again, if you release them to the general public, they will infect others, and the effect may be so severe. So we agreed that we can allow the ministry to spend 500 million to make various KMTCs across the country ready to receive these asymptomatic patients. And of course, the 1.5 billion, Mr. Speaker, it is clear that the ministry had to procure testing kits. And you know, testing is one of those areas which is a priority for this, not only this government, but any government in the world for coronavirus. We still have issues with KDF, Mr. Speaker. This is an area that is very difficult, Mr. Speaker, for Budget Committee to dig deep into because of the sensitivity and the secrecy with which our security organs are treated. The only, what we have said as a committee is for the relevant committee, the Defense Committee, Defense and Foreign Relations Committee, which has the mandate to oversight this ministry, to go dig deep and find out exactly what this 1.9 billion was meant for. Because I'm told it's for some intelligence gathering. That cannot, it's beyond the purview of the Budget Committee, Mr. Speaker, but as a House, we have a duty to look into this matter even further. Mr. Speaker, I just want to confirm again that there is ring-fence funds under health was not touched. But, Mr. Speaker, something came out that I think I need to talk about. In the course of our discussion, we realized that the PS owned up and told us that she was not aware that this money was ring-fenced until Parliament spoke about it. And so, Mr. Speaker, I remember in the 10th Parliament, and Honorable Kimunya can confirm this, almost every ministry had someone designated as a liaison officer continuously following through what Parliament was discussing. So that not only the amount, the approved legislation goes to the ministry, but the ministry is very clear, even on the debate that took place in the House. And so we advised the PS that it should have someone designated to be following what Parliament is discussing, so that she can understand exactly, as the accounting officer, what Parliament has approved. But this should not only go to the Ministry of Health, it should touch all ministries, need to be alert and understand exactly what Parliament has approved and what it is meant for. And we advised the accounting officer to move with speed and release the monies to various health institutions. The argument that some of these health institutions are devolved does not hold water because there is a procedure of releasing funds to those ministries. Mr. Speaker, again, the Ministry of Energy, this is my final comment, is that the Ministry of Energy actually told us that the auditing for this Loyangalani project has been conducted. I think it is not awaiting to be conducted. It has been conducted, only that the report is not yet out. I think because we didn't have the Auditor General. We still don't have the Auditor General, so to speak, who would then approve the audit report. Once this is done, Mr. Speaker, we hope it will clarify and bring to light exactly what the mysteries around this project, because we still feel there's a bit of unclarity in this project. We need to be more clear to know exactly what we are paying and how far we are with the payment. Mr. Speaker, I want to end there and just to say that I hope this is the last time that you are going to be treated to Supplementary Budget 3. That in future, if we have to overstretch, then we should restrict ourselves to at most supplementary budgets.
Something you may need to clarify. We are talking about supplementary 2. Where is it written?
Mr. Speaker, I didn't get you.
I want to confirm that it is supplementary. The bill is number 2, yes, supplementary 3. Proceed. You are right, Leader of Minority.
Mr. Speaker, I think supplementary budget 2
Yes.
was passed around April.
Yes, yes.
So we are actually on supplementary budget number 3.
Correct.
Which is historical in this country. And Mr. Speaker, of course we know COVID is being used as an excuse everywhere, but I hope going forward this will not be an excuse further. Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
And so, honorable members, I propose the question, which is that the Supplementary Appropriation number 2 bill, National Assembly Bill number 22 of 2020, be now read a second time. Now, I see only 2 members now, the third one here. Honorable Metito.
Thank you very much, Mr.
And
Speaker.
please, let's take, I know you have the 10 minutes, but you could do 3 or 4. That would be fine.
Thank you.
To make things easier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I stand to support the motion. And Mr. Speaker, as said by the previous speakers, this supplementary 3 is historical. It's the first time we are doing it, the third supplementary in one financial year. And allow me just to speak about the Ministry of Defense, because the committee that I have the privilege and the honor to chair, the Committee on Defense and Foreign Relations, oversight 4 agencies, and this is the only agency that got something in the supplementary 3 of 1.9 billion. And Mr. Speaker, although the leader of minority has clearly put it, that the issue of the sensitivity on security matters normally make it a little bit difficult for committees, especially the Committee on Budget and Appropriation, to dig into these figures. But I must say, Mr. Speaker, that as a committee, we have a ministry that is clearly very cooperating, and we share a lot on these budget issues, Mr. Speaker. And I want to say that this ministry, in the printed estimate of the financial year that is coming to an end today, was allocated 121 billion 610 million Kenya shilling, Mr. Speaker. But by the time the supplementary 3 is coming, the ministry has lost 6.89 billion, Mr. Speaker. Even with the addition of 1.9 billion, Mr. Speaker, in the supplementary 3, the overall loss from supplementary 1, 2, and up to 3 is 6.890 billion. Therefore, this clearly says that I know there was a reduction on revenue collection across board, but on security matters, Mr. Speaker, especially external, this is a big loss, Mr. Speaker. And again, going to the issue of COVID-19, Mr. Speaker, Ministry of Defense is not also exceptional, so they have put measures, probably mostly the containment measures as stated by the Ministry of Health, Mr. Speaker. This ministry has put a center at the Kabete where these COVID-19 measures are set up, and some of this money goes there, Mr. Speaker. And it is not only medical, Mr. Speaker, but the center also provide food and other facilities that are required in the management of COVID-19, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, as a committee, we met the ministry last week on Wednesday, and they explained in detail before the committee the need for this approval of 1.9, and we did approve, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, security in most cases is quite unforeseen. You budget about security matters today, and because of the changing external environment that we live in, and the global aspect, and this world has become global, Mr. Speaker, every insecurity that happens across the region, especially among our neighbors, Mr. Speaker, always affect us, and therefore it is very difficult to budget very precisely and with precision the issue of security matters. So most oftenly, Mr. Speaker, they will always come up as unforeseen security matters, Mr. Speaker. Finally, Mr. Speaker, because I just wanted to say that as a committee, we were satisfied with the explanation that the ministry gave us, and we requested the budget committee to agree with us and approve this 1.9 billion allocation in this supplementary 3. But I just wanted to mention about, now that we will be going for recess and with an added extra 1 week, Mr. Speaker, the issue of CDF, Mr. Speaker, we anticipate that maybe by the end of the week, the economy will be opened. That is an anticipation, Mr. Speaker. And then we go back to our normal life, of course, taking the precautions that the Ministry of Health will issue, Mr. Speaker. And during our recess, we will be able to maybe meet our constituents in one way or another and implement this development project under CDF, Mr. Speaker. And this is the first time we are coming into the end of the financial year, having only received, I think, about half of the allocation, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, we'll request the leader of majority, who really knows the workings of the Treasury so much, and with the assistance of the Deputy Minority Whip, who chairs the CDF committee, Mr. Speaker, to see that by as the time we are going for recess, at least we should have received all our allocation for the financial year ending this year before we even start talking of doing the budget for the coming financial year beginning tomorrow, Mr. Speaker. With those few remarks, okay. I beg to support.
Well, but I thought the leader of majority had actually on his own moved ahead and confirmed that was supported by the minority leader. So I think that issue of CDF is surely as good as done. Luckily, we have all the leadership here supporting that bit. So let's proceed. We have the next member is Honorable Agutu Abel. Oh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand to support the motion that has been moved by Honorable Lesonet. I understand, Mr. Speaker, the arguments that have been proposed, especially by the leader of minority, that we may encounter scenarios that find it necessary for us to have this kind of financial interruption in terms of our budget. But, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that it's very unfortunate that we are having this kind of confusion at a time when the country is dealing with an economic crisis that has been caused by COVID and preceded by the heavy and long rains that brought a lot of destruction and floods. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that it's important for the officers who guide us in preparation, who guide the preparation of the budget, to be very cautious that the most delicate time when we get changes like this one, changes that come with financial interruptions, at a time when the economy is weak, Mr. Speaker, it's very unfortunate that we may plunge this country into more trouble. Having said that, I want to make two comments. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that I support this supplementary bill on the grounds that it is in line with the agenda, the 4 agenda, that is the presidential 4 agenda, especially in the area of housing and urban development. It's very important that we begin looking at this country becoming much more urbanized with time. If you go to some of the rural areas that are really densely populated, places like Maragori, places like Kisii, you see they are converting into more and more urban areas. So I support that we should really come up with this kind of support. But then, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that I don't know how the issue of those whose houses have been destroyed and many other infrastructures in the rural areas, how they can benefit through this kind of window. I know that the Minister of Devolution has a sector that may come in to address that, but Mr. Speaker, I want to say that the situation of areas that have suffered flood is something that the urban and development area may want to look at. the small towns in those rural areas so that they can also be beneficiaries. Second, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that there is a department of post-training which has only received a very small amount of money. This department falls under the Ministry of Education. Mr. Speaker, I've been wondering why we need to fund this department, why we need to have this department for the first case. The department gets a budget of about 300 million. Are we really serious about this department being functional and delivering the purposes for which we intended to have them deliver? Mr. Speaker, that's a question maybe that I would like those who have the interest to be able to take forward. Finally, I look at the area of water and sanitation. Mr. Speaker, COVID is now an issue that we have to live with. Schools are going to open or to reopen. Many schools don't have water. And those who have water, they don't have clean water. So I don't know whether there is time to gain from this kind of angles. And I've seen, Mr. Speaker, in the rural areas, a number of boreholes that have been sunk, boreholes that don't function. So we need to put serious thinking about this vote and see how we can use it as a window when the schools reopen. We know that most schools have access to clean water because we have to prepare ourselves to live with COVID. Mr. Speaker, thank you. I support.
Okay. Honorable Dr. Wamalwa. And
Thank
by
you.
the way, I think I might have said 10 minutes for members. That is not the true position. It's 5 minutes. But you could speak less.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this supplementary appropriation bill. It's very, very unfortunate, Mr. Speaker, that we are seeing the supplementary budget number 3. This is a true indication to show, Mr. Speaker, there is poor planning. And it's been said, Mr. Speaker, that failing to plan is planning to fail. COVID has been here, Mr. Speaker. And this cannot be an explanation or entertained that we should allow this to go on without condemning, Mr. Speaker, the current CS. Because when it comes to planning, Mr. Speaker, there's normally a provision for unforeseen circumstances. And how sure are we that he might not come tomorrow with another supplementary budget number 4? So as we do the planning, Mr. Speaker, it is indeed important that the CS, wherever he is, Mr. Speaker, he must try as much as possible.
To interrupt the flow of your debate, but there can be no room for supplementary 4.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think outside the box. Because if such a trend, is going to...
The box is closed. You know,
if such a trend is going to be the trend, Mr. Speaker, absolutely. If this trend is going to be the trend, Mr. Speaker, then it's going to be very dangerous. I want to focus particularly on the aspect of health.
What is it, Honorable? Is that Chege Wanjiru, the member for Muranga?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you know, I'm just concerned on the line that the honorable member is taking. You've just informed him that it's not possible, you know, to go to a supplementary for the books are closed. So do we want just to waste time, Mr. Speaker, you know, go into a line that really does not add value to this House? Mr. Speaker, the issues that the honorable member is raising, he started very well. But when you say at the time of pandemic, I don't think it was failure to plan. There are things that have come up. Mr. Speaker, I would like to inform him that Kenyans went to quarantine centers and were not able to pay. So it's not that we were not, there was planning, Mr. Speaker.
Okay.
So
thank you.
It's good, Mr. Speaker, that he really goes to the line that adds value to this House.
He had actually come to the line that was required. You have a valid concern, but he had already come back and was proceeding very well in
Mr.
this debate.
Speaker.
So,
Mr. Speaker, in planning, in most cases we use a trend analysis. And the fact that COVID is there, the projection has been done. You can do, and Mr. Speaker, what is called, when you try to extrapolate, and that is a methodology that is used in planning. So what I'm trying to put across, Mr. Speaker, this COVID did not come yesterday. It has been there. So the question is, the issue of MTC, when it comes to the issue of quarantine, the CS should have put it into projection because it is not coming from nowhere. Obviously, when it comes to planning purposes, you must be able to give a projection. That's what I'm trying to put across.
Because COVID is here with us, Mr. Speaker. We are going to stay with it. So we should not entertain unnecessary amendments here and there. And when it comes to KEMSA, Mr. Speaker, which I'm very concerned, when it comes to testing is very critical, Mr. Speaker, when it comes to management of this COVID. Many times we've been told we want to flatten the curve. But unfortunately, the curve is not flattening. Instead, it's increasing exponentially. So that means there's a big problem when it comes to testing. If it means the issue of the reagents or whatever it is, they must be provided for in full, so that, Mr. Speaker, for purposes of control, the testing can be able to be done, so that a proper projection can be able to be put in place for accurate mitigating strategies. And, Mr. Speaker, when it comes to KEMSA, KEMSA is the medical authority that is the one in line of all the supplies. We are calling upon KEMSA when it comes to matters of efficiency and effectiveness. The other day in the newspaper, Mr. Speaker, we saw in the papers issues of corruption in KEMSA. And we are calling upon the CEO in KEMSA to pull up his socks, because all the Kenyans are looking at KEMSA when it comes to matters of the supply of the issue of the testing kits, the issues of PPEs. I saw it in the papers, I read, and we need a statement, particularly from the Chair of Health, to tell us more what is happening in KEMSA as far as matters of corruption are concerned. Because it was in the papers, it was the purpose of the EACC, we need to know. The 1.5 billion is not small money, Mr. Speaker, and all this money is going there. We should put mechanisms in place that will ensure in every county we have a testing center, if it's possible. And this will help Kenyans when it comes to purposes of planning and mitigating strategies, Mr. Speaker, against this issue of COVID. Otherwise, I support the supplementary estimate, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Very well. Honorable Martin Owino. Since I had given 2 members here, I am giving 2 this direction, and then I'll come back 2 here again in that order. I will give a few chairs, of course, but I will also give the members. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support this motion. And I think my leader has explained very well why we are doing this. But my concern, even as I support, is that this house is becoming a house of lamentation, a house of sanitation, and we keep on going, bending too much back to accommodate. Having said that, I hope my chair, the Health Committee, is aware of this, that human resource for health is one of the issues that we are dealing with. Because you have 3 legs here: human resource, medical supplies and equipment, and infrastructure. And the reason why that 2 billion was there for human resource is that we have a gap.
I have been listening to you, Honorable Wino, very keenly, and I was wondering the issue of house of sanitization. Are you suggesting that this house should not be sanitized?
Not in that manner, but bending
backward.
backward.
In terms of, and I can see quite a number of members, staff who are sanitizing, or what else did you mean? But proceed.
Mr. Speaker, what I mean is bending backward to accommodate what has been expended so that we have the right books when we close. That's what I'm saying. That should be not the normal operation of this house. Indeed, we should have, be on these ministries to have contingencies and also be disaster prepared so that we don't get into this supplementary. But in closing, I was just saying that we as in the Committee in Health, we are very concerned about human resource. Even if we approve this 1.5 billion for testing, there is a great need. Who is going to test them? Even if we set testing centers, who are going to be there in order to execute what we are saying? So I hope the ministry have some money somewhere that they are going to use to make sure that we have HR for health intact. Even as I agree that they need money for KMTC and also for the testing. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
If members spoke like that, many more members will speak. So let me see one chair here, and we could say Honorable Kosing.
I thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this chance to support the chair budget. Honorable Speaker, as we support this, I want to make it very clear and to be on record, Honorable Speaker, because this idea of supplementary tree is causing some uneasy. It's becoming uneasy, Honorable Speaker. But I want to say this, Honorable Speaker, and particularly going to the department that we oversight, that is, Honorable Speaker, the committee, we oversight transport and public works and housing. Speaker, we have 2 items in that supplementary 3. One is on housing in Mukuru Kwachenga, where the chair budget had earlier spoken about. There is nothing unusual, Honorable Speaker, in that item that of 2.37. There's no unusuality, Honorable Speaker. The reason being, works were going on, and this department, Honorable Speaker, had been given 4 billion in the last budget to be able to deal with the big 4, which is a very important thing for our government and our people, Honorable Speaker. But what happened, Honorable Speaker, during supplementary 2, the Ministry of National Treasury removed the entire amount of 4.3, Honorable Speaker, and yet works had already been committed to be done. So where do you expect, Honorable Speaker, that money to come from when it was in the budget? And normally when it's budget, then people go to commitments. And it was committed, Honorable Speaker, and works were going on. And even they're going on, Honorable Speaker, in Mukuru Kwajenga. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, maybe going forward so that people don't bring up these issues of supplementary 3, Honorable Speaker, I would suggest that the able committee, budget committee, Honorable Speaker, when Treasury removes the entire amount of money, like that, Honorable Speaker, in the Department of Housing, that, Honorable Speaker, and we raised during supplementary 2, Honorable Speaker, I raised it very clearly, and I objected the removal, Honorable Speaker, but the budget committee was on a bit of hurry. I'm suggesting, Honorable Speaker, so that we treat this idea of supplementary 3, that once monies have been removed by, for example, National Treasury, that budget committee gives us an opportunity before them to engage ourselves with National Treasury, Honorable Speaker, before the committee, so that we can be able to reason together with National Treasury, so that we avoid these ideas of supplementary 3, Honorable Speaker. But otherwise, I want to be on record, Honorable Speaker, on behalf of my able committee, that there is nothing unusual. That money was taken, Honorable Speaker. Number 2, on the railway, Honorable Speaker, particularly the commuter railway. We got 1.3, Honorable Speaker, in this supplementary, and there's nothing unusual. We had already been going on, or the ministry was already been going on. Honorable Speaker, the reason why I want to put my weight on that, Honorable Speaker, is as we open the country, hopefully then by the end of the week, the country is going to be open, Honorable Speaker. The biggest challenge will be in transport, Honorable Speaker. When we are keeping the protocols of social distancing, Honorable Speaker, it will be a big challenge to keep social distance in a matatu. It will be a big challenge, Honorable Speaker, to keep social distance in a bus. And remember, Honorable Speaker, these buses are private. They are not government-owned. What is the risk? The risk, therefore, there is that the private sector will be motivated by profits. And therefore, what's going to happen? They might even fail to observe those protocols in terms of social distancing. Honorable Speaker, because COVID-19 is here with us, we don't know when it's going, we should plan as a people, and government should lead the process. And that is why the government is leading in doing the entire commuter railway in Nairobi very fast, Honorable Speaker, so that it is easier in a railway where you are carrying the biggest people or the biggest population, Honorable Speaker. And then with the space which is available in the railway, then you can be able, then, Honorable Speaker, to implement those protocols that we need to observe in this country, Honorable Speaker. And that is why I want to be on record, Honorable Speaker, as chair of the committee, that there is nothing unusual. It is just because we need to plan. And somebody said earlier, Honorable Speaker, that planning is important. Yes, that is why we need this money, Honorable Speaker, so that we can then implement a proper transport that will then promote, Honorable Speaker, the social distancing that we require in this country. With those few remarks, Honorable Speaker, there's nothing unusual, and I support.
The Chair, Health. And I know this matter touches only a few chairs. As Chair Health, I think now we are expecting Chair Security and Chair Education. And we will also be giving members, because we cannot have only chairs speaking to this, but it should be brief.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to support and I want to thank the Chair Budget and the team for actually giving us a chance even for my peers to appear before them for clarity. And I also want to assure the members of this House that the money that was reinvested by Parliament is still safe. Chair, if you notice that the money that we are moving, the 2 billion, was money that was meant for HR. And Chair, it's good for members to know that when the government gave the governors the opportunity to employ, some of the counties are still lagging behind. Chair, in fight for COVID, we have health is devolved. We have to work closely with the county governments. And I want to urge members, even as we go to the recess, I tabled last week the amount of monies that have gone to various counties. It is important that members find out what has happened or what has been done by their county government. Chair, because as we want to fight COVID, we really have to support also the people on the grassroots and in the ground, Mr. Speaker. So today, as we support our location for KMTC, we had planned, Chair, but the people who came for quarantine, you remember, Chair, majority of them had come from abroad, and the assumption of the government was they would be able to pay the 2,000 that were being asked for these facilities. But when some of them turned positive, they were not able to pay, and the government had to take care of it. And so that is why we have now money owed to KMTC. The issue of testing kits, I want to inform this House Chair that it is not even possible that we'll be able to do mass testing in Kenya. One, even the availability of these test kits, they are very rare. So we had Africa coming together and negotiating as the entire continent so that they can even get it cheaper. So as we talk about KEMSA, this is going to be government to government. And Chair, we are hoping that when such deals are done by the continent, that this equipment or the testing kits will come even cheaper, Mr. Speaker. And so I want to urge the members that we support. I want to thank the Budget Committee. And as we even open, Chair, I think personal responsibility, the government has really urged, even in our transport sector, I've heard the Chair Transport saying it might be difficult to control. But it's important for Kenyans to know that this disease has no legs. It is carried by another person. So as you enter in a matatu and it's full, you take your responsibilities first, because it's not the government to really take care of you. If there are protocols already raised on how many people should be in a matatu, I urge the people in the private sector, even the wananchi themselves, to be able to take care of themselves and make sure that they follow these protocols. This disease, we don't know when it's going to come to an end. So it requires a lot of us to work together and to make sure that even what is allocated by this House or elsewhere, we have people who are donating, that we make sure that this money is utilized, and we will not lose any single cent, that we actually look for even good prices so that we cannot waste a lot of money when you're doing this procurement. And for what has been requested by the Honorable Amalwa, I'll be looking at that issue. I've also seen it in the papers. So I'll be requesting my ministry to really furnish us with if there's anything happening at KEMSA. But for now, I'll not really want to comment on an issue that I'm not really fully aware about it. So I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I urge the members we support. Thank you.
Very well. Honorable Melly.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to speak into this, and I support the Budget and Appropriation Committee. However, as my colleagues have just alluded to, that this is very important, especially as we move towards the reopening of schools. We really need enough classrooms, enough desks, especially in the primary school. And I want to ask members that the investment on this particular area is very important. Noting that in primary schools, children sit on a bench or a desk where there are 3 or 4 kids, that they were able to invest that amount of money, about over 1 billion shillings in prefabricated lockers, is very important. Now that we want to flatten the gap, Honorable Speaker and members, the money that has been actually set aside to buy desks, to buy lockers, has to be spread across the country. And I also want to point out that the classrooms, for social distancing and even for good, Honorable Speaker, you need to ask members to converse in low tones, that classrooms are actually supposed to have 20 students. And this is something which I think it is going to be very, very difficult for teachers.
Honorable Melly.
Yes.
Members must observe social distancing in the House. And even if the leadership of the minority want to consult, they must consult within the required and acceptable protocols.
Yes.
Social distance, 1.5 meters to 2 meters apart, and with the masks on. The nose should not be out. I understand where Honorable Amalwa comes from, and the physique. You must also consider, making specifications for your face mask, so that you don't have to have your nose outside So let's proceed as you wind up, Honorable Mel.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I think it is good for members to know that it is for their own health and safety. That, Honorable Speaker, that the classrooms that we need in this country is actually a lot or many. And if the Ministry of Education is not given enough funds, if it is not allowed to build enough schools, either even prefabricated classrooms, actually the spread of COVID is going to be unprecedented in our schools. Honorable Speaker, we have also the issue of ensuring that we have sanitizers, we have water, and we have even the teachers and the non-teaching staff need to be taken through the protocols on how to keep health and sanitation in schools. You'll realize that what has been actually allocated, Honorable Speaker, looks a lot by any standards. But if you sit down and you pen each and everything, you'll realize that the amount is
what
very...
is your point? What is the order, Honorable Meli? What is it, Honorable Fatuma Gedi?
Yes.
And you see the problem, I cannot be able to notice you properly because the mode of dressing you are in is
of the mask
matching properly with the seats. So therefore, what is it?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Standing on Standing Order number 95. Looking at the mood of the House, Mr. Speaker, and there is a timeline for this bill, I'll really want you to call the mover to reply, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. Well, Honorable Meli, finalize. You see, my hands are always tied when members bring up that particular standing order.
I think it is important, Honorable Speaker, to allow members to speak to this, because it is also to enlighten the population and to enlighten the members that the government has actually invested in this. Though they have given a lot of investment, the money isn't enough, because looking at the student population in this country, you'll realize, Honorable Speaker, that even the money for CDF need to be released so fast so that it will actually augment or actually assist the government to put up some of these structures. I support, Honorable Speaker.
But since there are only about 2 members who want to speak to it, if they can do 2 minutes and then we dispense, I think that would be fine. Honorable Pukose, there are not many members anyway, but if I see more members interested, I'll have to, finalize the way Honorable Gedi has requested.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I stand to support the Supplementary Appropriation Bill number 3. Initially, before I was de-whipped, I was the Vice Chair Energy Committee, and the issue on Loyangalani-Suswa line came in. Honorable Speaker, why we ask for an audit on this is that this is an item that has been recurring in the budget, 1.16 billion. And this is based on the dim energy. That is energy that the Electrocana power company, wind power company, was ready to be able to feed into the national grid the energy. But apparently, once they fed into the national grid, Honorable Speaker, it has been fluctuating between 250 and sometimes even lower megawatts. And yet what they charge is per the capacity, which is 300 megawatts. And therefore, if you are not able to attain to that maximum, why should you be able to charge the dimmed energy at a maximum? So that was actually the basis.
As you contribute, Honorable Lesonate should be in his place so that if need be, then he'll be able to reply.
So that is the basis, Honorable Speaker. And then we looked at it that this is money that has been paid. We've paid up to around 9.6 billion initially to this company. And this, we felt that the taxpayers were losing by continuously paying into this. But apparently, Honorable Speaker, under the, where is this money, where is this appropriation bill being approved? This is money that has already been paid. So we are using Article 223 to regularize what has already been paid. And since there is already an audit, and we are hoping that the Auditor General will be able to give a report then I don't think Kenyans are going to lose anywhere. Honorable Speaker, having listened to the Committee on Health, I think it's important that testing of Kenyans should be done appropriately so that soon we are able to open up and people get to normal. Unfortunately, Honorable Speaker, when you look at what is happening, people have gone back to their normal day-to-day activities, even with the warning from the CS that let's not assume things are normal. But people are going back to their normal activities. I think it will be very hard for us to be able to attain what we want to achieve unless we are disciplined as a country. So with those few remarks, Honorable Speaker, I support.
Honorable Baya, then I will dispense. I mean, honorable members, I think we will have to, if maybe we proceed.
Yes, Mr.
Proceed.
Speaker, I would like to thank you for this opportunity and say...
I was trying to really give a few more members, but if you have an issue, I will put the question and then you'll make the decision on whether you want to proceed or not.
Yes.
If you do it, then you can be very sure of the outcome. Proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I would like to stand to, at the initial stage, support this supplementary, but also to say that supplementary 3 is unprecedented, like I said, it's historic, it's the first time. Now, when you see a government that moves from supplementary 1 to 2 to 3, there's one thing, and I think the new leader of majority will agree with me, that you have a problem of efficiency within a system. Now, when you have efficiency, it means, therefore, you have a supplementary 3 because money was not spent and therefore must be spent within a short time. Would have comfortably taken this money into the new budget and moved on. But having said that, I would also like to say that we have a project there for energy. The Ministry of Energy is one of the most inefficient ministries. And I would like to say this. The rural electrification programs that have been budgeted for many years, since I came into this parliament, some of them have never been completed. Here today, we have another situation where we want to give them more money for whatever they want to do. They might not spend that money. We might have to come back here. So I think the leader of majority needs to inform the department that they need to be more efficient in doing that. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, COVID-19 is a disruption, a global disruption. In this country, many things will be disrupted, including budgets because of COVID-19. What we need to do is preparedness, so that in future, as we spend this new budget that starts today or tomorrow, then we will not be caged again by COVID-19 to be able to come back and say, yeah, we are doing another supplementary budget because of COVID. So we need to have all systems go in such a way that procurement is not stalled because of COVID-19. Implementation of projects is not stalled because of COVID-19. And therefore, the team that has been put in place by the president to advise him on how to handle COVID-19 needs to move to top gear so that we are ahead of the disease. What we are right now is we are behind the disease is ahead of us, and if a country moves that way, then the economy of that country is more likely to be affected. Right now, the amount of money being spent because of COVID-19, and I can see the Ministry of Health budget of almost 2 billion, is coming back into the supplementary budget. Why? Because they are behind the disease. They need to work so hard to be ahead of the disease so that they can plan and therefore spend the money without having to come back for supplementary budget. The Minister of Education, I can see a lot of conflicting statements from the minister, meaning therefore his lack of preparedness. He says we might open in September. He says we might not open at all. He says we might open in January, meaning therefore he's delaying decision-making. If decision-making is delayed, that's when we come back again and say, we want a supplementary budget. Why? Because we are not ready for opening of schools. Why? Because we don't have desks, we don't have masks, we don't have things like that. I think I would like to advise my friend, Amos Kimunya, you need to advise this government and the ministers, and the people that the president have entrusted with the responsibility to make decisions in this ministry, that they need to move ahead and make decisions and not be hazy, like we are seeing from the Minister of Education. My daughter calls me and says, Dad, when is school happening? I can't tell her why. I'm here in this parliament. Why? Because the minister keeps oscillating, It is this oscillation that will lead us to supplementary 4 in the next financial year. That is what is likely to happen. But I think we Kenyans, we are resilient, we are people with the oomph, we are people with the ability to go ahead of this pandemic and overcome it as soon as possible so that we put this country into normalcy. I heard that we need to look at the rail, that we need to put more money in the rail. But even the rail, when it comes here, it will stay a whole year, even before people have developed a protocol. How long does it take to develop a protocol? Or is it the money for tea and snacks that they are looking for? So we need to hasten on how to handle this COVID so that we avoid next year. Because this COVID seems to be here. It might be here 2022, 2023. But how we handle it is more important. And other countries have done it. We can do it as Kenyans. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Dege.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I stand to support, but I have some reservations. Allow me to start with...
But so that we know whether that is the final one, you know, Honorable Gedi had risen under Standing Order 95, that the mover be called upon to reply. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Many as of a contrary opinion say nay? Nay. The ayes have it. So therefore, Dege, you will have only a few minutes just to...
Okay, thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Let me start with health. And I want to address this to the Committee of Health alongside the Ministry of Health. When you listen to the Chair Committee on Education, he is very categorical, talking about the protocol and everything which they are trying to come up with so that schools may be opened. Today, when you are listening to the Supplementary 3, we are budgeting monies to Kenya Medical Training Colleges for quarantine areas. When we should be now, at the moment, be confronted with this challenge of COVID and start saying that how do we open our medical training facilities so that we start training health professionals to come out and help us get enough manpower to confront these challenges. For how long are we going to close Kenya Medical Training Colleges and health training institutions in this country when we need more health workers to be trained and be qualified to come out and help the population to confront this disease? My second concern was about the monies allocated outside here. When we talk about the ring-fenced amount by Parliament, I was seriously looking forward to see money going to my county of Migori, because Migori, Busia, those border counties are having this burden of the disease. But when you look at the outcome, those border counties were not considered, which I want to say that if you look at the monies we are now, okay, my colleague said you are sanitizing, but I don't want to use that word. It's more of benefiting towns as opposed to rural constituencies where we are coming from. You talk of Kazi Mtaani. When I go to Nyatike, my youths are not even benefiting on anything. You talk about money ring fence for health facilities. My county is bordering Tanzania. No money is going there. When you talk of the population of people affected, you look at Busia, and there's no money going down there. It's high time we need to get a budget which we can also have a say in it, not things which are rushed up to a level whereby we just rubber stamp things which are not even benefiting people equally in this country. I support, Honorable Speaker.
Okay, so then we have the mover replying. Honorable Lesane. Your 53 is coming on and off.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as I reply, I just want to assure members that we have heard you, that next time we should not see a supplementary 3 in this House, Mr. Speaker. And those sentiments, Mr. Speaker, in our meeting with Treasury, we actually told them it is next to bad manners to have a supplementary 3 on 30th of June, when it is the end of the financial year, Mr. Speaker. So those sentiments have reached, and we did understand their situation, Mr. Speaker, that this particular time was COVID, and Mr. Speaker, COVID-19 comes with their own challenges. Mr. Speaker, in meeting with the PS Health, we did note that even other than the 500 million to KMTC, Mr. Speaker, we need money urgently, 200 million, which we could not provide in this supplementary, towards educational institutions just like Moi Nairobi Girls, Nairobi Primary, Nairobi School, Mr. Speaker, who are also centers for quarantine. That 200 million is required so that by September, if the schools are opening, those schools will have done massive refurbishment, including fumigation of such facilities and paying bills, Mr. Speaker. Those schools have used their resources to pay bills while attending to those quarantine patients. Mr. Speaker, with your permission, allow me to donate some minutes, Mr. Speaker, to Honorable Dr. Mutunga, 1 minute, Mr. Speaker.
You wish to donate your minutes?
Yes, I want to donate
Then it means you have nothing more to say.
Yes, to Honorable Dr. Mutunga.
Therefore, you just say that you are moving to reply, because if you know members, under the standing orders, one debate is cut.
Thank you.
It means, no, you will not proceed. You have finished what you wanted to say.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I reply. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And so I put the question, which is that the Supplementary Appropriation number 2 Bill, National Assembly Bill number 22 of 2020, be now read a second time. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
A bill for an act of parliament to authorize the issue of certain sums of money out of the consolidated fund and the application toward the service of the year ending on the 30th June 2020, and to appropriate those sums for certain public services and purposes. Order number 14, Committee of the Whole House.
Very well, honorable members, we are now in the committee of the whole house. This is a very brief bill, so we are going to take a few minutes. If we could concentrate so that we make movement. Honorable Resonet, you'll be the man of the movement, because there are amendments on all the clauses that we are dealing with.
First schedule.
Honorable members, I propose that the first schedule be part of the bill. Honorable Resonet, you have an amendment to that?
Mr. Chairman, yes.
The first schedule.
Yes, the first schedule, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, the first schedule, Mr. Chairman, be deleted and replaced with a new schedule as shown in the order paper, Mr. Chairman. So that is the amendment, Mr. Chairman. And the import of this amendment, Mr. Chairman, is to capture what we were just debating now in this bill, Mr. Chairman. The bill which we have just approved, Mr. Chairman, we are capturing those amendments, including what was originally in the bill, in this new schedule. So that is just the import to replace the schedule in the bill with this one in the order paper. I thank you.
Very well. Honorable Majority, I'll give you, but let me propose a question first. Honorable members, I propose a question that the first schedule be amended as proposed by the chair. Honorable Majority Leader.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I decided to just raise early to clarify that members will know we had a bill, we had a supplementary bill that I tabled on Tuesday. The committee looked at it. Then some items had not been agreed upon at the committee point of doing the report because they did not have the information. The information then subsequently came, and the amendments that are being proposed is basically to bridge and bring back to the bill to what was tabled. So what is on the schedule is what we tabled. What is in the bill is what the committee had proposed. But between Thursday last week and yesterday, the committee was able to meet and reconcile all those issues. And hence, we now have the amendments which have been discussed in detail during the second reading. So perhaps with that in mind, we probably then don't need to debate so much, so long as we agree that we have now a reconciliation between the original bill, the amendment, which will then bring the bill to what the committee has agreed and the departmental committees have agreed. So really, as members, I don't think we have anything else except to support the views from the committees. Mr. Speaker, I just want to bring that into focus and on record that indeed the new first schedule is really the agreed following the committees that have met between yesterday and what was introduced as a bill following the approval of the report as it was then on Thursday. And Mr. Speaker, with that, I beg to support this and ask members that perhaps we should limit the debate on this. Let's get on with it so we can have it signed, and at least this afternoon could even get some of these funds going to where they need to be.
Very well. Very well. Very well. Let's give Honorable Bui for 1 minute, then we make progress.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I think when we are doing the debate on second reading of this appropriation bill, I think that's when we've got all the information from the chair of the committee. But ordinarily, when we are doing the committee of the House, our order paper reflects if it is a schedule being changed or all that information goes on the order paper. And I just wanted to ask that the order paper which is online does not contain that information. So maybe just for orderly conduct of business, ensure that is always here for us to be able to go through. Thank you, Chair.
Very well. I'm told the Honorable Bui, actually you have a copy. You have been given another copy. Physical. But clerk, ensure members make progress, have copies so that we move together. Honorable members, don't we want to make progress? Honorable Sheikh, do you want to speak to a few seconds so that we make progress?
I want to support what the majority leader said. As you are aware, the supplementary came very late in the day, and the committee have been receiving information from the relevant authorities piecemeal. But now we have a consolidated information that we can make use of at once.
Very well, honorable members. I now put the question that the first schedule be amended as proposed by the chair. Will as many as are of that opinion say aye?
Aye.
Will as many as are of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. I now put the question that the first schedule as amended be part of the bill. Will as many as are of that opinion say aye?
Aye.
Will as many as are of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Second schedule.
I propose a question that the second schedule be part of the bill. Honorable Chair, you have an amendment. Honorable Sonet.
Mr. Chairman, just like in the first schedule, I want to request the House that the second schedule, as shown in the bill, Mr. Chairman, be deleted and replaced with a new schedule which is shown in the order paper. Mr. Chairman, it is basically for the same reasons that in this new bill, in this new second schedule as shown in the order paper, it takes care of all amendments which we debated during the second reading, Mr. Chairman.
Very well.
So basically the same reasons, and I really want to request members to support. Because of time, these resources are needed by the end of the day. So, Mr. Chairman, I want to request the members to support. I thank you.
Honorable members, I propose a question that the second schedule be amended as proposed by the chair. I now put the question that the second schedule be amended as proposed by the chair. Will as many as are of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as are of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. I now put the question that the second schedule as amended be part of the bill. Will as many as are of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as are of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Clause 2.
I propose a question that clause 2 be part of the bill. Honorable Lesonet, you have an amendment to clause 2. Your mic keeps hanging. If you could, yeah, you have the mic now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, that clause 2 be amended by deleting subclause 1 and substituting therefore with the following new subclause, that the Treasury may issue the sum 18,264,450,000 shillings out of the consolidated fund and apply it towards the supply granted for the service of the year ending on 30th June 2020. That is the amendment, Mr. Chairman. And again, the import of this amendment is just to include additional requests, including, Mr. Chairman, the 2 billion shillings which we granted, 1.5 to KEMSA and 500 million shillings to KMTC, Mr. Chairman, which were not in the original bill as tabled by Treasury. Mr. Chairman, I request these members to approve. I thank you.
I propose a question that clause 2 be amended as proposed by the chair. I put the question that clause 2 be amended as proposed by the chair. Will as many as are of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as are of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. I now put the question that clause 2 as amended be part of the bill. Will as many as are of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as are of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
New clause 3.
New clause 3, Honorable Lesonet, if you could move second reading of new clause 3.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, as I move the second reading of the new clause 3, that the following new clauses be inserted immediately after clause 2.
No, Honorable Lesonet, just for record, you just need that that clause, that you move that clause 3, new clause 3 be read a second time.
Thank you.
Then you give us you give the House the import.
Well guided, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I move that the new clause be read a second time.
That new clause is clause 3, right?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead
3.
now, give us the import.
Yes. Mr. Chairman, this new clause, Mr. Chairman, is to capture one appropriations in aid. Mr. Chairman, in addition to the sum granted by subsection 2, the sum specified in the fourth column of the first and second schedules shall be applied for the several services and purposes specified in the second column of those schedules out of revenue directed to be applied outside the consolidated fund under Article 206, subclause 1B of the Constitution. Mr. Chairman, there is a reduction. The supply granted for the services of the year ending on 30th June 2020 in respect of votes D1107 and D1291 in accordance with the Appropriation Act 2019 is reduced by the amounts specified in the third column of the second schedule. I thank you.
Honorable members, I propose a question that new clause 3 be now read a second time. I put the question that new clause 3 be now read a second time. Will as many as are of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as are of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. I now propose I propose a question that new clause 3 be part of the bill. I put the question that new clause 3 be part of the bill. Will as many as are of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as are of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
New clause 4.
New clause 4, Honorable Chair, please move the second reading.
Mr. Chairman, I don't seem to have new clause 4.
No, if you can't see it, it's good to approach and get it clear.
Yes.
You may approach the clerk. It is okay, Honorable Chair. We want it done in a tidy way. It is okay, sometimes you miss because of the many papers you have.
Thank you. I'm guided, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I move that new clause 4, Mr. Chairman, be read a second time. Mr. Chairman, the new clause 4 is for the supply to be granted for the services of the year ending on 30th June 2020 in respect of votes D1107 and D1291 in accordance with the Appropriation Act 2019 is reduced by the amount specified in the third column of the second schedule. I thank you.
Honorable members, I propose a question that new clause 4 be now read a second time. I put the question that new clause 4 be now read a second time. Will as many as are of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as are of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. I propose a question that new clause 4 be part of the bill. I put the question that new clause 4 be part of the bill. Will as many as are of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as are of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Title.
Honorable members, I propose a question that the title be the title of the bill. There is no amendment to that. I therefore put the question, but that the title be the title of the bill. Will as many as are of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as are of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Clause 1.
I propose a question that clause 1 be part of the bill. Honorable Chair, you have an amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment on clause 1, that clause 1 be amended by deleting the phrase and shall come into force upon publication of the Gazette and substituting, therefore, the phrase and shall be deemed to have come into force on 30th June 2020. I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Honorable members, I propose a question that clause 1 be amended as proposed by the chair. I now put the question that clause 1 be amended as proposed by the chair. Will as many as are of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. I now put the question that clause 1 as amended be part of the bill. Will as many as are of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Honorable members, we are done with the Supplementary Appropriation Bill number 2, National Assembly Bill number 22 of 2020. Committee of the whole House. Mover.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that the committee do report to the House its consideration of the Supplementary Appropriation Bill number 2, National Assembly Bill number 22 of 2020, and its approval thereof with amendments.
Honorable members, I put the question, which is that the committee do report to the House its consideration of the Supplementary Appropriation Bill number 2, National Assembly Bill number 22 of 2020, and its approval thereof with amendments. Will as many as are of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as are of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Chairperson?
Thank you. Honorable Speaker, I beg to report that the Committee of the whole House has considered the Supplementary Appropriation Bill number 2, National Assembly Bill number 22 of 2020, and approved the same with amendments. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Mover.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the House do agree with the committee in the said report. Mr. Speaker, I also request Honorable the Majority Deputy Whip, Honorable Maoka Maware, to second the motion for agreement with the report of the Committee of the Whole House.
The Honorable Maure.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to second.
Honorable members, I propose the question, which is that the House do agree with the committee in the said report. Is it the mood of the House that we put the question? Very well. I put the question, which is that the House do agree with the committee in the said report. Will as many as that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Yeah. We move to third reading.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move that the Supplementary Appropriation Bill, Bill number 2, National Assembly Bill number 22 of 2020, be now read a third time. I also request Honorable Maoka Maore to second.
The Honorable Maore.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to second.
Honorable members, I propose the question, which is that the Supplementary Appropriation Bill number 2, National Assembly Bill number 22 of 2020 be now read a third time. Is it the mood of the House that we put the question? Very well. Honorable members, having confirmed that we have the requisite quorum in the House for purposes of making a decision, I therefore put the question, which is that the Supplementary Appropriation Bill number 2, National Assembly Bill number 22 of 2020 be now read a third time. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? No. The ayes have it.
A bill for an act of parliament to authorize the issue of certain sums of money out of the consolidated fund and the application toward the service of the year ending on the 30th June 2020, and to appropriate those sums for certain public services and purposes.
Very well. Next business.
Order number 15, motion, approval of the mediated version of the County Government's Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 11 of 2017.
Vice Chairperson of the Mediation Committee. Oh, it's you, Leader of Majority? Proceed.
Yes, I did that in my earlier life. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this House adopts the report of the Mediation Committee on the County Government's Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 11 of 2017, that was laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, April 22nd, 2020, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 1132 of the Constitution and Standing Order 150, approve the mediated version of the County Government's Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 11 of 2017. Mr. Speaker, the Mediation Committee of the County Government's Amendment Bills, number 11, was constituted by the speakers of both houses on 23rd of July for the National Assembly and 25th of July for the Senate, with a mandate to consider the bills that had been tabled in the two different houses and had amendments that were not reconcilable when each of the two houses then passed their versions. Mr. Speaker, this is a very brief report and the matter, because the clauses that were in contention on this particular bill were only three: clause number 8, clause number 11, and clause number 15. And these were referred to the Mediation Committee. And if I just go to the three clauses, On clause 8, Mr. Speaker, the issue was very simple. Senate had proposed some wording that a notice needed to be put in the county gazette. As we all know, the county gazette has not come into operation. So this House, in its wisdom, said we should remove that. And the mediation committee agreed. Just that we basically talk of in a gazette, not in the county gazette, which does not exist right now. On clause number 11, again, it was brought in to introduce the dismissal of a county executive member, and this House had suggested that when a county executive member is being dismissed, the governor should be compelled to give reasons. And when we then sat within the mediation committee, we said, CECs, the county executive committee members, are political appointments, just like our cabinet secretaries. You are appointed by the president or by the governor. They don't give reasons why they're appointing you. And when they want to dismiss you, they should dismiss you without necessarily having to be compelled by law to give reasons, because what reason will be legally acceptable to anyone? To avoid that ambiguity, we said, let's just leave it and borrow from what happens at the national level. If no reasons are required at the national level, no reason should be required at the county level. And on clause 15, again, Mr. Speaker, this is, we had not, the Senate had not provided for the qualifications of a county secretary. This House, in its wisdom, provided for those qualifications. And the Senate eventually agreed with us. So the long and short of it is that of the 3 clauses, 2 were introduced by this House, and Senate agreed. The smaller one was introduced by Senate, and we agreed with them. So really, we don't have to debate what we already proposed and was agreed by their part. And hence, I would like to urge that we agree with the mediation committee so that this bill can now see the light of day. It's been long coming. We need it for the management of our counties. And we don't want to go into the merits of the wider bill, but it contains quite a lot. And these 3 clauses have been a hindrance to the realization of the fruits that are contained within this bill. So, Mr. Speaker, with those few remarks, I beg to move and ask the Honorable Kaluma, who was a member of the mediation committee, to second.
The Honorable Peter Kaluma.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I stand to second the mediated version of this particular bill which originated in the Senate. Speaker, the manner in which this mediation process was undertaken confirms that as 2 sister houses or brother houses, if we are objective, we can actually agree on many things and progress the nation forward. Speaker, we sat as a team. The team which was chosen by the respective speakers to assist with the mediation is listed. And I can confirm, Mr. Speaker, that in addition to the matters which the majority leader who chaired the mediation team has confirmed, those other 3 issues largely came from this House when we debated the Senate bill. And the concern of the National Assembly, Mr. Speaker, was that suspension of county governments is a very serious thing. In the version which came from the Senate, the version of the bill which came from the Senate initially, the President was being required to undertake actions related to suspensions without specifying time within which that ought to happen. And it was the view of this House that, Mr. Speaker, there was need, and there remains a need to limit the time within which the President would gazette suspension or a dissatisfaction with the decision on suspension within 14 days. We sat in mediation, Mr. Speaker, and the majority leader has confirmed we did move, well and agree. There were issues of nomenclature, whether the suspension is to be authorized or approved. And I think the Senate team in the mediation committee did agree, Mr. Speaker, that we go by the wording which is in the Constitution. In fact, I wanted to therefore request my colleagues in the House that this being something that was largely consensual, and this being the import of mediation, you agree with the mediation committee and you support this version of the bill or something that is mutually agreed. Mr. Speaker, let me thank the Speaker of the National Assembly for choosing me to be among the team from this assembly, which would lead in the mediation, coming from the Committee on Administration and National Security. Just to confirm that this mediation went very well, Honorable Amos Kimunya, who chaired the mediation team, is today our majority leader. I've not had occasion to congratulate him, but Mr. Speaker, let me confirm to the House and for records that his leadership capacity, which I knew before then, manifested even best in terms of how he led this strong team both from the Senate and National Assembly to virtually agree on anything and to save this critical bill so that it does not fall like those others which have lapsed before. Honorable, you will note on number 4 of the membership of the Mediation Committee, Professor Margaret Kamar. She's now, after the mediation, gone ahead to come with the Speaker. Why am I saying this, Mr. Speaker? Perhaps in this team, I'm the only one remaining to be somewhere. And I'm saying this because my deputy, my minority leader, is in the House. Now that things are happening, I look very bad. I look demoted after this mediation if you have not been duly considered. I thank the House for the opportunity, Mr. Speaker, and I beg to second and request the support of the House for the passage of this one. I thank you.
The Honorable Kaluma, you will surely come into your own. Sometimes the very best comes to those who wait, like you. We pray for you. Honorable members, allow me to propose the question that this House adopts the report of the Mediation Committee on the County Government Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 11 of 2017, laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, April 22, 2020, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 113, Subarticle 2 of the Constitution, and Standing Order 150, approves the mediated version of the County Government's Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 11 of 2017. I see interest from the Honorable Robert Moy, member for Kathiani.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support the passage of this mediated version of the County Government's Amendment Bill. On the onset, I think it's important to note that we already debated it and we made our proposals. And when the Senate and the National Assembly disagreed, the mediation committee actually has come up with an acceptable version, which I think is worth supporting. I am happy that they agreed with us on the fact that if there is no county gazette, then the Kenya Gazette really reigns supreme. I'm also happy that they agreed on the issue of the qualifications that have to be given for any person to hold public office, so the county secretary is not exempt. And finally, of course, I think the part now which is really critical is the part of where the governor was supposed to give excuses or reasons for dismissing a CEC. I'm very happy that the committee has agreed to the fact that these are political appointments. And Mr. Speaker, that basically means that if somebody can appoint you to a political office, it means that they want you to follow and to align yourself to their agenda so that they can be able to be of service to the electorate in the line or in the way by which they proposed to the public when they were campaigning. And so that is why I'm supporting this, because even at the national level, the president had his promises to the people when he was vying for the office. And over the years, we have seen that some of the ministers or CSs have supported his agenda, and some have not. And whenever the president dismisses a CS, we are left to speculate. It is not important for him to tell us. It is up to us to figure out what could have gone wrong. Because the president cannot come out and explain, I am firing this year because of this, because of that. I think it's important because even in this house, there was a purge that took place and people were knocked out of positions, obviously because of loyalty. So I think it's important that we allow political processes because that is how we get into this house. Let's allow political processes, and therefore let's allow the governors also to dismiss their CECs when they feel that they are not helping them in their agenda. With those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I support.
The Honorable Martin Owino, member for Ndiwa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I really rise to support the team. I think this was an esteemed team. They did a good job. And Mr. Speaker, can you imagine if you were to give reason to dismiss somebody? It can take years. And I agree this was a political appointment and willing hire, willing fire. So I think that was good. But most importantly, Mr. Speaker, this came from the 3 reasons which we raised from this House. And the mediation team has corrected it. So I think we should move fast and accept them. Lastly, Honorable Kaluma cried, Mr. Speaker. I think we should say Kaluma for chair somewhere. I support.
The Honorable Member from Ndiwa, I can see the Honorable Kaluma is conversing and is presenting his best CV to the powers that be that are determining these things. It will be well. The Honorable Abdisalan, member for Ajia North. The Honorable Abdisalan, not desiring to be present. We shall have the Honorable Pukose, member for Endebess.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I support this motion. I support this bill. Honorable Speaker, I know that at times things turn. And when it is on the other side, then you feel it. People who are initially calling President Uhuru names are now the ones who are very much in the forefront of supporting what he's doing. And I think this is the Kenya that we live in. This is the Kenya that we live in, and these are facts. What it means, Honorable Speaker, is that nothing is always the way it seems. It is not the way it is. It depends on where you are. And some of us are not, we are not bitter that we've been de-whipped. We are happy because, for one, it also, our supporters realize where we stand. And you can see those who have managed to remain in the middle where they are, that some of them are not even able to hold even rallies over the weekend or even distribute anything because the ground is different. It depends on where you come from. For us who come from Rift Valley, we will always stand with our man.
The Honorable
For
Pukose,
people who come from
the Honorable Pukose.
Yes.
I'm just wondering which motion it is that you're contributing to.
The mediated version of the county government's amendment bill.
I see, without putting you down.
Yes.
And this being the COVID season.
Yes.
I don't see how we can be advocating for members to be holding rallies and distributing things while we have this.
Unfortunately, Honorable Speaker.
Yes, Honorable, because just try to be relevant to the motion. Please.
It depends on which side of the government you are in. Because for those who are within the government, they'll continue having normal meetings. And for those who are not within, you saw what happened to Honorable Etangula and Honorable Mudavadi over the weekend. And even Honorable Chris Wamalwa can attest to that. That for those who are considered to be...
The Honorable Pukose, just hold on. The
Yes.
Honorable TJ Kajwang, what is out of order?
Mr. Speaker, sir, on account of relevance,
I listened to the leader of majority explain this bill very well, and seconded very well by the member for Homa Bay Town. Now, Mr. Speaker, we are being treated to instances that are happening in the greater Rift Valley, especially in Uasin Gishu and so on. And Mr. Speaker, you are being asked to remember some scenes which were not on the floor of the House concerning some people that have been mentioned. How relevant, Mr. Speaker, would those submissions be to the bill that is before us? Mr. Speaker, would you rule my friend, a person I hold with a lot of esteem, because he is not only my classmate and a person I shared with very dangerous times, but also my personal physician. But on this, wouldn't you rule him out of order that he is bringing issues which are not before the Assembly?
The Honorable TJ, you're absolutely right. The Honorable Pukose, kindly just stay on the course. Of course, you have a right to air your concerns and your views about what the government might be or might not be. But the business before us now is a discussion of the mediated version of the county government bill number 11 of 2017. So let's just stay the course. You have probably 2 minutes to go. Just say something about this.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I really respect what Honorable TJ Kachwang has said. You know, in 1992, TJ Kachwang was our chairman for Zone 92, and that is the time we were fighting for the liberation of this country from the grip of KANU, where there was only one party system, and I was a congressman. Honorable Speaker, times have changed, and TJ Kachwang, I think we've gone back to 1992, when we need to have a second liberation of this country from the grip of the new KANU, and that is where we are today. So, Honorable Speaker, this mediated fashion bill, I want to support it. The Senate, the mediated fashion of the county government's amendment bill, Senate Bill number 11 of 2017. Honorable Speaker, I know it takes time for bills to come from the Senate to here, and at times some of these bills get lost. Some of the bills that we hope they'll be, when we go out there, some of the former councillors are asking us, there's a bill that was taking care of their interests, where did it disappear into? And I think when you look at now this one, 2017 up to today, we are in 2020. It has taken 3 years for this bill to come from the Senate and to come to the National Assembly and go to the mediation committee. It is mediated, and today it is here. I think it's a high time that we move with speed, approve this bill, so that what was intended can be achieved. With those few remarks, Honorable Speaker, I support.
Very well, Honorable Pukose, I can only sympathize with you, but it will be well. You are here, you belong to this country. Some of us have never known the bosom warmth of government. We have been in this thing called opposition, but we have not died. We are still here. You will be fine. Don't worry too much. We shall have contribution from the Honorable Oundo Ojiambo, member for Funyola.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Yes, for sure. Honorable Speaker, I stand to support the mediated version, and I must reckon that it has been a wonderful job. At one time, the substantive speaker seconded me to one of those mediation committees, and Honorable Speaker, I left a dejected man because some of our older brothers in the Senate took such a hardline position, devoid of any professional input or the benefits of this country. But I'm happy that this mediated version has been agreed upon, and we can conclude this process. Honorable Speaker, yes, the county government is the future of this country, but we must admit we started on a wrong footing, so many loopholes, so many lacunas in law, and so many issues. It is important this amendment to the County Government Act have come at the right time to address so many issues, so many gaps that had been left along when we were preparing the Act in a hurry to meet the constitutional requirements as it was then. Honorable Speaker, yes, the county government employ very many people, and some of the issues raised here are important and critical. I just want to mention one or two issues. First of all, the issue of appointment of the chief of the CEC is indeed a good issue, proposal. Being a political office, you must always wake up and work at the whims and the benevolence of the governor, because you are serving him or her to meet their campaign pledges and their mandate. If you are unable to deliver, the rigorous position that was being taken of giving reasons why you are firing, that was indeed going to be unfair, considering the President of the Republic of Kenya is not obliged to do so. But honestly speaking, Honorable Speaker, it is important that yes, along we'll have a disagreement, but I want to urge governors, CECs are the advisors, they're the implementers of their mandate or their whatever they're supposed to do. It is important that they work together and achieve whatever they are required. Honorable Speaker, the other issue that I'm happy about is the issue of employment equity plan. Honorable Speaker, quite a number of places wherever you go, there is complaint of favorism, nepotism in the employment. You find in where we have a county of different ethnic groups, one ethnic group dominates all the important positions. This is clearly happening in my account of Busia. I suppose once the act once the bill is assented to by the President, with the people of Busia, we'll call for an audit of employment positions so that not all the lucrative positions are reserved for a few people to the detriment of the entire leadership in the entire county of Busia. Honorable Speaker, as I conclude, Honorable Bukose has taken us back to memory lane. In 1992, many of us, I think, were first year at the University of Nairobi. Probably the only person I heard of was TJ Kajwang. Hope, being a Congress person, he wasn't heard much. But I want to tell him, most of us, as you have clearly put, we have never known the so-called government. And we have happily lived. Whatever little we have brought development. And even where we have been in government, I can't say anything substantially important that has come to us by virtue of being government. I console him, these things happen, and life has to go on. With those few remarks, I support.
The Honorable Pukose, it's not about you. Don't worry. No, he mentioned you on a light note. It is not, don't take it too seriously. It is well. It will be well, my brother. We shall have contribution from the Honorable Adagala.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. My voice is a bit hoarse, and I think you can bear with that. I stand also to voice on this motion that it should be approved in a way that our county governments have really been struggling in some of the areas of doing their work, because devolution being the first thing that most governors had not experienced. They've been having problems with the handling of CECs and other positions. So I stand here also to support this motion, and I would comment the way my other colleagues have been commenting, especially Dr. Pukose. Dr. Pukose, welcome. You've enjoyed it for the last 7 years. This is the time you want to test the fruits of being in opposition. I welcome you with all hands and feel at peace in Amani, where we are accepting you with full hands. You are welcome. And now, you know, you have to get prepared. As we age to 2022, you will be in opposition. And also, Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to say the team that conducted this work, especially those that were with the Honorable Kaluma, they have been awarded some goodies, and my son-in-law has not been given anything. I would also wish, if something, Mr. Speaker, can be given to my son, Honorable Kaluma, so that he can also feel the goodness of being in government and take care of my daughter and the people of nominee 00 number 1, Mr. Speaker, protect me from him. He likes,
the honorable,
when I want
the
to...
honorable Adagala, just hold on. The honorable listened. What is out of order?
Mr. Speaker, those who have spoken to this motion are variously referred to Honorable Pukose as being in the opposition, Mr. Speaker. I'm aware Honorable Pukose belongs to the majority party, the Jubilee Party, in this House, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I have heard, including yourself, giving my assurance that it will be well. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Pukose has not left Jubilee, Mr. Speaker. And he knows the consequences of attempting to leave Jubilee, that it may include him vacating his seat for Endebess. And I'm sure he has no such intentions, Mr. Speaker. So I just wanted to tell the members to stop insinuating that the Honorable Pukose has left Jubilee. And for avoidance of doubt, Mr. Speaker, we are aware that the Jubilee Party has not signed any coalition agreement, for post-election coalition agreement, with a party like ODM, which Honorable Kaluma belongs.
The honorable listened. What is your point of order?
My point of order, Mr. Speaker, is the members are imputing improper motive on the Honorable Pukose. And that is out of order, Mr. Speaker.
The honorable member for Mogotio, the Honorable Pukose, in his own submissions, had alluded to the fact that he's no longer part of what he considers to be government. And I think that is in that context that the members were speaking to. But anyway, that is not the debate before this floor. The Honorable Pukose, resume your seat. That is not the way we do business in this House, and you know it. You are a senior member of this House. We must have respect for our own rules, our own orders in this House, and we must have order. These matters have been spoken to outside what is before the business of the House, and we must go back to business. The Honorable Adagala, kindly confine yourself to the business that is before this House and make your submissions on the order that is under discussion now.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Actually, I was coming to it. I was just trying to let these people know if they are suffering in that Jubilee, they should come to Amman National Congress where there is peace. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When I go back to the motion, I support, because most of these governors have been suffering under these people called the CECs, and I want to thank the committee that handled these matters, the matter to conclusion, that they have done a very good job, and therefore we want to see counties working in an orderly manner, whereby the CECs and the governors working in amicable way to make sure that they deliver to the people in the counties. because there's a lot of money that is leaving the national government to the counties that need a lot of working together. And if there is any CEC who may not want to work, I think the governors should be at liberty to do away with this kind of people. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I support this motion, and I recommend the team that worked on it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Bukose, welcome to Aman National Congress.
The Honorable Adagala, and remember to wear your mask properly. Yeah, we must lead by example at all times. The Honorable Chumel Moroto, member for Kapenguria.
Asante sana Bwana Spika kwa kunipa nafasi ili pia niungane na wenzangu kushukuru wale ambao walitengeneza hii bila ambayo tunaongea juu yake mpaka mali imefika. Bwana Spika, wakati wana Kenya waliamua kuwa na mambo ya ukatusi, walikuwa na lengo kubwa sana kwamba kwa sababu mbeleni mambo mengi yalikuwa yanabaki hapa juu. Na ukikumbuka sessional paper number 10 ya 1964 ilikuja ikakawa inji na kuwaja sehemu zingine, especially sehemu za kafu, waumia na kuumia na kuumia.
The member for Nakuru East. I'm sorry, Honorable Speaker. Yes. Proceed, Honorable Moroto.
Asante. Nasema kwamba ukikumbuka kuna mateso. Ukiangalia wakati moja, Bwana Speaker, shilingi milioni 3 peke yake ililetwa West Pokot. West Pokot kwa jumla siate Kapenguria ama sehemu kidogo iwe ya kuweka maji. Na unajua vile eneo ile ilivyokuwa. Na kuna sehemu ambayo watu walikuwa wanafurahia, hata wengine hawajui mali wataweka hiyo pesa, lakini walikuwa wananyima sehemu ambayo ilikuwa inahitaji. Kwa hivyo nasema kwa hii mambo ya ukatusi vile imekuja na vile sasa hii bill inaenda kusaidia ule uongozi wa county. Bwana Speaker, najua kwamba itasukuma na itaelegeza mpaka sasa ile matakwa ya wananchi pale chini wataanza sasa kufaidika. Kama vile mmoja wetu hapa hivi alivyosema, kuna eneo ambayo watu ni jamii mbalimbali wanaishi, kama sasa Kapenguria. Hapo ni mnaita cosmopolitan. Ni area ambayo kila mtu yuko hapo. Lakini utapata kwamba sasa ile kwa sababu wale wengi wakati tunajaribu kufanya campaign, unaanza kuangalia nikichukua nyingine wale watasema tutakunyima kura. Alafu sasa inaanza kutenga wana Kenya wale wanakaa pale. Kwa hivyo naamini sasa hata pia utaona kwamba kuna mahali makavana wawili walikuwa wanang'ang'ania kupata kiti. Mmoja kama mwingine alitangulia wakati ile tamu iliyopita, na mwingine akuje wakati huu anajaribu kuangamiza kabisa wale watu wengine wale walitangulia. Kwa hivyo tunaamini kwamba mimi naamini kwamba hii wakati itapitishwa na ifanye kazi, itakuja kuweka watu pamoja. Na kila mtu yule ambaye amepewa jukumu atajua kwamba atakuwa anafanya kazi juu ya sheria, si kwamba naenda tu na kufanya vile mwenyewe anataka. Bwana Speaker, kama vile sisi wengine tumekoa hapa kwa muda, hata ile mchango watu wanaweka hapa. Mimi ni mtu wa papa na mama tangu. Lakini hapa juzi nikakuja Jubilee. Wale walikuwa wanapiga kelele. Wakati sasa wameingia tu, wanaambiwa onjeni hata supu peke yake, hata wajakula ugali, wanaanza kupiga domo kubwa. Tutararua hiyo mdomo na kufunga mdomo wenu. Kenya inaangalia. Kwa hivyo kwa sababu tulisema kwamba ile maneno ya kukawana waje ikwishe, wacha tuje pamoja na kupeleka Kenya pamoja. Sasa mnaingia na kwanza leta mchezo. Asante Bwana Speaker, wacha ni
The Honorable Moroto. The interest of the nation that is known as Kenya is unity. And if all of us can work in a uniform way to improve our lot, then it is good, surely. And this is what we pray for, that we should be united. Yes. We shall have contribution from the Honorable Tonui, member for Bomet.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity also to comment on this motion. I think it has been an exciting moment from the side shows on the contributions. I support this mediated version of the bill because I believe we need to smoothen the law, the gaps in the law, to ensure that the counties perform. Because I believe the devolution which we are experiencing in this country is godsend, is the best thing which has ever happened. Now we have even access roads in the villages, deep inside the villages, you're able to access, simply because of the county governments. When we used to have only the national government, that was the time when we experienced lots of underdevelopment. If we can continue with the devolution by encouraging such laws, then I believe we'll have a better country, we'll develop in a better way, we'll have better roads, we'll have better health services, even the level of corruption will reduce, because the level of stealing in the counties is in terms of millions, in terms of thousands. But the ones which are experiencing at the national level, we are talking of billions. Even if you have those facilities which were never cleared in the Ministry of Health, over 5 billion and such. But when we talk of county governments, at least the oversight which is there is much, much better than with the one which you're having at the national level. So I believe any law which can strengthen devolution must be supported. So one such as this one, I truly support it. In fact, I appreciate the idea that we are empowering the governors even more by ensuring that they can decide on who to work with at any given time. So that if the CEC is not performing, they can simply sack them without needing to explain why, so that they can get the people whom they can work with better. I believe that can be better, and I think whatever bills has been coming from the Senate are well digested, and I appreciate them, and I support it, because as long as the devolution is being strengthened, is for the better. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very good contribution. The Honorable Sankok.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to inject my voice in this particular very important bill. Honorable Speaker, and the mediated form of the bill, I am sure the committee did a very good job, and we are supporting it 100%. Because, Honorable Speaker, the spirit of the Constitution was to devolve money to the grassroots. Of course, not to devolve corruption the way we are seeing, wayward corruption within the counties, but then the spirit was to devolve money so that we can have those access roads deep in the villages, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we do support this bill. Honorable Speaker, the only reservation I have is the devolution of social services. Honorable Speaker, our people with disabilities are suffering on the ground. Honorable Speaker, because if they go to the county government, they are told your functions are not devolved. You are not devolved. You are in the National Council for Persons with Disability. Honorable Speaker, and you find that the allocation that is given to the National Council for Persons with Disability, which is approximately 1.7 billion, minus the 1.2 billion for cash transfer for severely disabled, it remains only 500 million. 500 million that is supposed to take care of the very vulnerable members of the society that are 6.5 million is actually peanuts, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, so as we support this particular bill, we want to tell the governors that you cannot devolve human beings. Persons with disabilities are within the counties, they are within the sub-counties, they are within the Constitution, and that our Constitution, Article 54, Honorable Speaker, talk of how persons with disability will be cushioned in any society. We have also ratified the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability. Therefore, as we support this amended form and we support devolution, Honorable Speaker, we should also take care of the vulnerable members of our society. Honorable Speaker, I've had the issues, Honorable Speaker, about Jubilee. Jubilee is the majority party, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, yes, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Sankok.
Yes.
Relevance.
Yes.
And let's stay relevant.
I will maintain, Honorable Speaker, relevance, and I will be in the bill, Honorable Speaker, and that is why I'm supporting the bill, Honorable Speaker. But because of the unity which you have inscribed, Honorable Speaker, as the Speaker of the House, we have said that we extend an olive branch to even ODM. Come so that we can unite. Come so that we can work together. All of you can sign the post-election or pre-election agreement so that we can work together. We have already accepted KANU. We are willing to accept ANC. I already have two bosses. That is a party, Jubilee Party boss, Uhuru Kenyatta, the KANU boss, Gideon Moi. They are now my bosses. I have two deputy bosses. That is Ruto and the others. So we welcome all of you. So come in. Don't worry. And Honorable Pukase is still in Jubilee. He will work with you. The only importance that I want to advise Honorable Pukase is that party loyalty in a presidential system of government is very important. Yes, party loyalty. There is no insubordination. And that the head of state remains to be the head of state. And deviating from the head of state is treason, punishable by law, Honorable Speaker. So, thank you very much, Honorable. I support the bill 100%.
The Honorable Pukose, already the Honorable Sankok had received sanction from the Speaker that what he was going into, the area he was going to, was not part of the debate. So just hold your horses. It is the Honorable Pukose, that is not the way we do it. Yeah, let's just have order so that we can progress. We will now have the mover to reply.
Yes, Mr.
The
Speaker,
Honorable
thank
Member
you.
for Nakuru East, you are out of order. You don't have your card. You are carrying up your hands. You are yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is a very straightforward bill. Like I said, you know, we already debated it. We made amendments. We took to the mediation. Mediation took our amendments. Senate agreed. So we are actually debating what we had debated. And it's something I actually thought would have taken 5 minutes to just agree with ourselves. So, Mr. Speaker, with those, and there's still an opportunity, probably one more speaker in the next bill that I'll be moving shortly. And, Mr. Speaker, I think with those words, I beg to reply.
Very well. I direct that the next necessary steps of putting the question will be undertaken when the matter will be listed again. I therefore direct that we move to the next order of business.
Order number 16, motion. Approval of the mediated version of the County Government Amendment number 2 Bill, Senate Bill number 7 of 2017.
Leader of Majority.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this House adopts the report of the Mediation Committee and the County Government's Amendment Bill number 2, Senate Bill number 7 of 2017, that was laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, 22nd of April, 2020, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 113 of subsection 2 of the Constitution, and the Standing Order 150, to approve the mediated version of the County Government's Amendment Bill number 2, Bill, Senate Bill number 7 of 2017. Mr. Speaker, most of the debate general debate has taken place within the context of the area bill. Now, so I don't want to go back into the history of how it was referred. And this is a very short bill in terms of what was being mediated, because there were only two clauses, clause 2 and clause 3. And Honorable Kaluma actually did even mention in terms of clause 2, because the differences were in terms of how is the communication by the president when a matter has been referred to him in terms of dissolution of county and all that, and the timelines, what happens to reports going to the Senate and who should receive and the manner of receipt of those reports. And we looked at it and said that the National Assembly had gotten it right. So Senate then agreed with us. So basically, we should be congratulating ourselves that we were able to improve the bill that came from the Senate and enriched it so that it's now better in terms of how that is the communication takes place. Mr. Speaker, in terms of the Senate, they also drew our attention to some nomenclature issue that we are using a word that was not consistent with the bill, and we quickly agreed with them that, we use the word authorization instead of approval. And it was okay. So basically, it's a very small, very short issue, but could have derailed the whole bill, which is very fundamental in terms of laying the structure for the whole thing about dissolution of a county. If the president agrees, if the tribunal agrees and the president does not agree, if they disagree and he agrees in terms of the modalities. And the bill is now clear, and hence I really don't want to get into the merits and demerits because that had been canvassed here. But just suffice it to say, I want to take this opportunity to record the thanks of the committee and the membership of that committee, both from the Senate and both from the National Assembly. We worked in a very cordial manner and were able to achieve the results in record time. The originators of the two bills, Senator Murkomen and Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr., did come to the committees and became part of the team and made it even easier for us to agree on the issues. So, Mr. Speaker, again, I expect that perhaps we even put the question after this one because the general matters have been canvassed, and I beg to move and ask Honorable Kaluma to once again second.
The Honorable Peter Kaluma.
Yes, Speaker, I second.
Honorable members, I then propose the question that this House adopts the report of the Mediation Committee on the County Government's Amendment Number 2, Senate Bill Number 7 of 2017, laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, April 22, 2020, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 113, Subarticle 2 of the Constitution, and Standing Order 150, approves the mediated version of the County Government's Amendment Number 2, Senate Bill Number 7 of 2017. I see interest from the Honorable Martin Owino. The Honorable Member for Nakuru East, you can finally have a say on this.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. First, I want to thank you most sincerely for giving me this opportunity and to be able to air a little bit of my issues that I know the majority leaders put it very clearly. They are very minimal things. But you see the importance, Honorable Speaker, of the National Assembly in terms of every bill should be passing through National Assembly. And I think with our wisdom, and of course Kaluma and his team, they were able to come up with, give ideas that the Senate had not looked into, and they were able to come up with that as you dissolve, and we were seeing this, I think it is one of the counties in Western, they want, the governor wants it to be dissolved. And I think it is important for us to critically look at those timelines as the majority leader has put it. But Honorable Speaker, it is important. Now that we are going for some form of referendum, it is important for us to look at the very critical two things that have been proposed in the BBI. And it is important to bring back the health functions back to the national government. Honourable Speaker, that is a very key issue that we really need to look at when we come to the BBI thing. And I think, Honourable Speaker, it's important for us as National Assembly. You know, I was once a councillor and a mayor for that matter, Honourable Speaker. And devolution, as Honourable Sankoko was putting, it is the heartbeat. It was the main thing that we required at the county level. And I think we have gotten it a little bit wrong. And you see the way things are happening, you know, impeachment and things like that. But I hope that as we look towards dissolution of counties, which was a well-thought issue by the committee of experts when they were doing this, I think they just missed out on a few things that has been finalized by Kaluma and his team, and I want to thank and say, Honourable Speaker, it is important for us as a National Assembly, and I support the motion. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
The Honourable Rosanna Fasaris, member for Nairobi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I actually didn't want to contribute to this one. I wanted to contribute to the next one. But in as far as the Senate and the Parliament are concerned, I mean, I know we've had this back and forth going on, but it is obviously becoming obvious that the legislators are in the National Assembly and not in the Senate. So every time the Senate does a bill, I think it will be also nice and prudent for them to try and also involve. We've got many committees, and they could also be involving the committees so that by the time it comes to the National Assembly, we're able to synergize and make sure that we all end up serving the people. I think the Senate has responsibility in as far as the counties are concerned. And we know that we have so many issues in counties. And we see that even in the Health Committee, we find that when it came to COVID, the Senate were very, very quick to rush and create a COVID committee, task force, etc. And we find that there's so much duplications when it comes to issues that pertain to the National Assembly committees, where Senate seems to be overstepping what National Assembly has to do. And then you find that the various CSs that we have are being called by both the Senate, and then they're called by the National Assembly, and then there's a total confusion. If the National Assembly actually focused on strengthening and empowering the county governments, we would be in a better position to ensure that devolution is a success. Right now, we have so many challenges in devolution and so much confusion in as far as how the Senate is handling the whole aspect of devolution. I mean, we looked at the amount of money that the government has given, 5 billion shillings, for the county governments to actually boost up their responses to COVID and also ensure that they can deliver on universal health care. And we've seen that quite a number of counties have not actually been able to get more than 10 or 15 beds. And with the rising cases of COVID, we are actually in a crisis. When you think of devolution, the whole idea was to make sure that in the grassroots, we actually end up with uplifting of people's lives. And right now with COVID, we're going to see that there's going to be such a drastic drop and an increase in poverty because we've not been able to actually address what the Senate should do in terms of county government. There is this talk right now about women reps being taken to the Senate. And, you know, when we think about it, I mean, I always felt that we actually campaign as leaders all over, when we're campaigning for the whole entire county as women reps, we do that. The whole idea of making sure that women reps are taken to the Senate because we work in the county makes a lot of sense, but at the end of the day, we should not lose the gains that we have in the National Assembly. We should also be encouraging that the Parliament, the various political parties ensure that the National Assembly brings women that are elected by nomination, not ensuring that we end up with more nominated women in Parliament, and then we end up, again, seeing women as a burden. So all in all, we respect and appreciate what the Senate does, but I think the Senate needs to focus clearly in trying to empower the county governments to be able to deliver on the various mandates of devolution. Because what they're trying to do in terms of trying to legislate and trying to oversight, I think that that duplication makes it very difficult for us to actually be able to attain what we want to attain. We're exhausting the executive by having the executive come to both houses to answer the same questions. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Honorable Passaris, women can never be a burden to this nation. They are the pillars of the earth, and we appreciate them. We shall have the Honorable Edith Nyenze.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. Let me congratulate the two committees that they were able actually to come up with something agreeable, and that should be the way to go. Health and agriculture have been proposed to come back to the national government, and I think we should actually, as we try to amend some of the Devolution Act for the county governments, we should also actually mirror with the CDF Act, because with the CDF, that is the only thing which you can see on the ground, and there is a lot of development. But when you look at what county governments are doing, you cannot see the 30% which is supposed to go to development. So it's good to actually look at this, the act for the county governments, so that we can see value for money because in most of the counties, you are not seeing value for money. And then you wonder whether it's because the act or the regulations for the devolution are not well fast, or what is the problem. And you also find that some counties are doing very well, while others are not doing well. The finances are being misused left and right, especially the revenues from their own source. So it's, as we also harmonize some of these acts, we should also look at that, so that devolution can be a success. So thank you, Mr. Speaker. Asante.
Can we have the mover to reply?
Mr. Speaker, I just want to thank the members for their contributions, and once again thank the committee for the deliberations. And I'll be, fortunately, I know them. So the next time there's a mediation, at least I know the team to pick. And perhaps also, I think one of the things we learned in the course of the mediation is that we need also a wider training of all the members on mediation. So it's not fighting for who is right, who is wrong, but how can we get the best out of the situation. And I believe if we do this across, even politically, we will be going places. Mr. Speaker, with those words, I beg to reply.
I direct that the next necessary steps in regard to this motion be undertaken when it will be next set down. Honorable members, the time being 1 p.m., this House stands adjourned until today, Tuesday, 30th June 2020 at 2:30 p.m.